Anyway, so let's talk about the characters first and foremost. Again, this Let's Play is sort of intended for semi-new players, so I will be going a little bit in depth about each character. People have asked me to do this. So this is Hector. He is the main character of the story, and he's a pretty good one. Hector is very popular in the fan community. People often refer to him as one of the best lords next to Ike. And I definitely understand where the praise comes from, because Hector is quite a powerhouse early on. He combines the defenses of an armor knight with the offense of a fighter, and he's not really that slow either. He's actually pretty fast, considering his whole gimmick is that he's slow and powerful. Hector's bases are pretty darn good. He has very decent base strength and defense, and since he starts out as level 1, he has many levels to grow, and he'll most likely reach pretty high stats in all areas, maybe except for speed and skill. And, of course, resistance. Hector's growth rates are all really respectable, being the main lord. They are pretty high across the board, and higher combined than most other characters in this game. In particular, his hit points, strength, and defense growths are all amazing, whereas his speed and luck and resistance growths are pretty low. Now, one stat that newer players may not be aware of is the Constitution stat. This represents your character's physical size. The more Constitution you have, the heavier weapons you can use without losing speed, which is nice. Hector can pretty much use every single axe in the game without getting slowed down by it, with the exception being steel axes and brave axes and some more advanced axes that we will have access to later on in the game. I find Hector to be a very competent unit. He has access to hand axes, which allows him to retaliate at range, which is more than 2 other lords of this game can say. And now I'll actually be doing something very controversial, something that I think a lot of people will be very angry about, but I think it's also going to spark a lot of discussion in the comment section. So from this point on, with every single character in this game, I'm going to be giving them a star rating. From 1 star all the way up to 5 star, with 1 star being terrible, 2 stars being below average, kind of lackluster, 3 star being decent / good, 4 star being above average, very decent units, and 5 stars being an excellent unit. That, 5 star units will pretty much carry your team. So with Hector, I am going to give him 3 out of 5 stars. Now, I'm pretty sure a lot of people might get surprised by this. I'm pretty sure many people in the community would rate Hector a lot higher. Some would say he may be a 4-star unit, maybe even 5 stars. But the reason why I don't rate Hector higher is because, yes, he is really strong in the early game, but he will walk around for a long majority of this game as a level 20 unpromoted unit, because he doesn't get his promotion until chapter 29. And he'll be a complete liability for a long part of the game. He'll be target practice for enemy mages, and he'll just run around being completely useless for a very long while with his 5 move. And when he promotes, he doesn't even get 6 move, he retains his 5 move, which is really, really bad. So that is why Hector is only a 3-star lord. He's a lot higher than the other 2 lords, which we'll get to later, but I only consider him a 3-star unit. Now, he does have a personal weapon, the Wolf Bill, which is a really good axe. It is effective against cavaliers and armor knights, or pretty much anything on horseback, even though it says in its description that it's effective against infantry, for whatever reason. I don't know why this is. It's reasonably light, it's very accurate, it has some crit built into it, and it has very good might, which is tripled against, of course, armor knights and cavaliers. The Wolf Bill will be your ticket to get out of here, because you'll be facing a lot of really strong armor knights and cavaliers in the early game, and even the boss in this chapter I think can only be damaged by the Wolf Bell, so it's a really important axe to have. So, let's talk about Matthew, the other character you get in this chapter. Matthew is your first thief, and he'll be pretty much a must-have, or a must-pick, or a must-field, I should say, in the early chapters of the game. You do get another thief later on, but he won't show up until chapter 20, which is 9 chapters from now, so you'll pretty much be forced to use Matthew. Thieves are very essential in Fire Emblem 7. They can steal items from other units, they can open doors and chests, which is very much needed. And as far as the unit goes, Matthew isn't bad. Sure, his base stats are a little bit shaky, but he has a very good 70% speed and 50% luck growth, which means that his avoidance will be insane after a couple of levels. He will pretty much reach a stage where enemies won't be able to hit him anymore, and this is very, very useful. As a fighting unit, Matthew can actually become pretty good if his 30% strength growth doesn't let him down. I rate Matthew a 4 out of 5 star units. Now the reason why he gets 4 stars is because he's pretty much a must-use early on, because there's so many items you need to steal, and you have to steal them actually. The first guiding ring you get needs to be stolen from a boss, and you'll need Matthew to get a couple speed points so that he can reliably steal from enemies, because you need to have equal to or higher speed than your opponent in order to steal an item from them. So for that reason alone, Matthew is a 4-star unit, simply because he provides so much utility early on, and you don't really have an option to not use him until you get the second thief in the game, Legault, which comes in 9 chapters later. So yeah, Matthew, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, let's talk about the 2 new units in Hector's party. We got Oswin. So, Oswin, I really like Oswin. I think Oswin's a fantastic unit. Normally I hate Armor Knights, but Oswin's the exception, because his base level is so high. He's sort of like a mini Jagan, and he's 1 level away from promoting, which is going to be very helpful in the rank run. I do plan to slap a Knight's Crest on him the moment he turns level 10, and I'm going to be promoting him to a General. So I give Oswin a 4 out of 5 stars when it comes to ranking.
Well, I figure most new people and noobs and everything I found them give Oswin high ratings, so I'm not surprised he did that. I'd say Oswin is about the same as Hector, where like early game his durability is so helpful and he can weaken stuff for other people to kill, which is very good in rank runs, you know? But at the same time, there will be a point where you will just want to field people that gain a lot of EXP, and Oswin is not one of those, and when you're like LTCing or whatever, Oswin also isn't very helpful because his move is so bad. But you know, early game, durability, really good. So I'd say 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, something like that. A lot of units are similar, really, this early in the game.
Did you just call me a new Fire Emblem player?
Yeah, you're a noob.
I played this game for 15 years! I'm not a noob.
You still haven't learned anything.
God damn it, Mecha. Alright, anyway, so here is Serra, my favorite little rosebud. I'm not gonna do the la 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 yet. You guys know it's gonna come, but we gotta wait for the proper moment. Oh, maybe we can make Mecha la 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 with us. That'd be a great shitpost. Anyway, so Serra is I like Serra a lot. I mean, she is pretty much a walking heal staff. I mean, that's what she does. That's kind of what you have her for. She's not amazing. I don't like her base magic of 2, but you kind of need her in the early game. I mean, you don't really have a choice until you get Priscilla. So for that reason alone, I rate Serra 3 out of 5 stars. As a bishop, she can do decently, but usually in a rank run, I don't think you'll get her up to a bishop. So we'll see about that. But yeah, I give her a 3 out of 5 star ranking. What about you, Mecha?
Yeah, I kind of agree with 3 out of 5. You could argue that the rank run she's worth a little bit more because even though she levels very slowly, because heal staff only gives like 11 EXP and her base level's 1, so that takes like forever. But at the same time, her EXP she doesn't share her EXP with anyone else, so Serra getting EXP by healing doesn't impede someone else from getting that EXP. So it's actually very helpful long term. And at some point you can buy Physic and Barrier, I think, and get her a bunch of free EXP at once, like, I don't know, 30 I think, 40, and that's very helpful. Right. So I think 3 out of 5 is about average. About what I'd give Serra, yeah. Alright,
so let's talk about Eliwood's party, and there's one very good person here and a lot of awful people. So let's talk about, let's save the best one for last. Let's talk about Eliwood. So I don't like Eliwood at all. I understand that he has potential because he has really high growth rates on average, but the problem with Eliwood is that he's just a walking Marth Lord. I mean, he has the rapier, which is a good personal weapon, but his bases are really icky, and his growth rates just aren't good in any single area. He has good growth rates across the board, but I just feel like Eliwood never gets anywhere. Like, he's never quite fast enough to double, he never had quite enough strength to do any decent damage. He just stays in limbo in like a really weird place. And sure, he gets a horse when he promotes, but that's so late since he's one of the main characters. If you could promote Eliwood early with a hero crest or knight's crest, I would have liked him a lot more, but you can't. So for that reason, I give Eliwood a 2 out of 5 stars, and that's actually a generous ranking.
Yeah, I kind of agree with 2 out of 5. I think the main problem with Eliwood is just that he's promoted so late, and that is, as you said, he doesn't have the strength to go or the speed to double for a long time. Once he does double though, which can happen mid-game because the enemies are even slower than Eliwood is, then he's kind of fine. The problem is that he also has 5 move and sword and everything, and Rapier has 2 times might instead of 3 times when it's effective.
Oh really? I was not aware of that.
And all that stuff.
Really?
Yeah, in FE8 it's 3 times, in FE6 it's 3 times, but in FE7 it's 2 times. In Japanese FE7 it's actually 3 times, so they nerfed Eliwood by accident, I think. But I do want to say that if you're not playing Hector hard mode, then Eliwood becomes a lot better, because he doubles lot earlier. So if you're playing a rank run and you're doing like Hector normal mode or something, that Eliwood is actually really helpful. But for the most part, I don't really like Eliwood either.
Well, that's actually a really big surprise to me. I was not aware that Rapier only doubles might against Cavaliers. That explains a lot why it's so bad. Alright, anyway, Eliwood, ladies and gentlemen. Then, we'll talk about Lowen. Lowen is the first Cavalier you get in, in the game. You get Sain and Kent later on, which I both think are way better than Lowen. Lowen, because, I mean, Lowen's the kind of like the Trek of Fire Emblem 7, I find. I don't like his growth rates, and I don't like his base stats, although, you know, he's Mr. 7 and 5.
Wow.
But what I like about Lowen is that he has a really good class. I mean, the Cavalier is a good class. You can't really rate a Cavalier poorly because the Cavalier is so good. And for that reason alone, I give Lowen 3 out of 5 stars, simply because he has good movements. But what I hate about Lowen is that he doesn't go anywhere offensively. 30% strength growth, 30% skill growth, 30% speed growth. All of his offensive growth rates are 30%. Sure, he has a lot of luck in defense, but I would rather have a Cavalier that kills stuff in a single round of combat rather than the Cavalier that can take a lot of hits. And for that reason alone, I only rate Lowen a 3 out of 5 stars, but in my opinion, you can never go below 3 out of 5 with the Cavalier, simply because the Cavalier class is so strong.
Okay, well, this is the first rating where I kind of really disagree, because I would never rate Lowen anything below a 4 out of 5, and I'll explain why. So I think you're putting a little bit too much emphasis on growth over bases, which is like my
is that a pitfall, Mecha?
Yeah, that is a pitfall. And see, the thing is, so like I think Kent has like a 40% strength growth, so that means Kent gets like 1 more point of strength in 10 levels, so that's like 4 in the whole game. If you level it to 2020, that's the whole end. So I don't think there's that big of a gap, and also Lowen's bases are actually really good for his level. Like 7 speed, 7 strength, and 7 defense is good, and I think he often takes like one more hit compared to like Kent and Sain, because I know you're going to compare him to them. And I think they're pretty similar in that respect, and because like in most games I would be annoyed by like a low speed growth too, and I do agree that Lowen sometimes has offensive issues, but at the same time FE7 enemies are also very, very slow. They weigh themselves down by steel lances a lot in middle of the game, and Lowen can actually double against those and do pretty fine. I don't think he's that bad. I would give him a 4 out of 5, and also I think if you're gonna early night crest someone, Lowen is actually a better candidate than Oswin, because he has more long-term value to you. He has a much better movement, so he'll be able to reach more targets. And in this run in particular, I don't think I would mind if Lowen failed to one-round kill things, because you're going to have to feed kills to weaker units a lot to boost your EXP rank.
Right. Well, okay, so yeah, there you got it. Mecha gives him 4 out of 5 stars. Alright, then it's time to... Oh, Jesus Christ. Who put poison?
Trust nobody.
Poison! What happened to Dorcas?
Trust nobody.
Oh boy, trust nobody filled an army Fire Emblem. Anyway, now that we're done with that, it's time to talk about, in my opinion, one of the worst units in the game. It's Dorcas. I'm just gonna say it right now. I give Dorcas a 1 star out of 5. I don't care, Dorcas fanboys. He sucks. Both of the fighters are in a really poor place in Fire Emblem 7, as they were in Fire Emblem 6, in my opinion. Dorcas's 20% speed growth really sucks, and while he does have a really nice base speed of 6, which certainly makes him better than the other fighter, I still just don't see how Dorcas contributes anything meaningful to the party in any meaningful way. He'll never really double enemies. He'll hit hard, but he's a bit of a liability. He's really frail for being a fighter. He goes down really quickly, especially considering there's some really nasty mercenaries and myrmidons in this game that can almost one-round him. I just never got Dorcas anywhere, and as I said, he is a 1 out of 5 star ranked unit for me. What do you say, Mecha?
Yeah, I agree that he's a bad unit. I just don't think it will hurt you too much in a ranked run, where you'll be killing enemies a lot anyway, for the XP rank, like for that sake. I'd say maybe 2 out of 5. One funny story about Dorcas is like I'm in a draft one time, like an LTC draft, and I really didn't want to go to the Germay version of that Flower of Darkness, you know? And that's like, you go there if your hero crest units outlevel your guiding ring users or something like that. And I actually had a little bit more EXP in my hero crest than my guiding rings at that point, but I really didn't want to go to German, so I fed Dorcas to Vaida when she was an enemy, and he died, and because of that I had less EXP on my hero crest users, because it only counts alive units, and that way Dorcas saved me turns by dying.
Okay,
so,
fine.
Best unit. 5 out of 5 for dying.
Okay, good. Fine. Alright, And we're back. Just had to deal with Skype. Skype's being an absolute bitch. So let's talk about Bartre. So Bartre, just like with Dorcas, Bartre's in a really poor place. His base speed is even worse than Dorcas, even though his speed growth is higher. I really don't like fighters in this game in general, and I find Bartre to just be a comic relief character. I really like him as a character, but I hate him as a unit. In a ranked run, even more so. The problem with Bartre is that, despite him being a 1 out of 5 star unit, just like Dorcas, actually he should kind of get half a star out of 5 now that I think about it. I have to use him, because you need Bartre in the late game. You need to have him as level 5 warrior to recruit a swordmaster that appears later on. But, for the purposes of this playthrough, I really, really want to recruit every single character and show off every single character. So even though this swordmaster is also a trash unit, I have to use Bartre. I have to get him up to level 5 warrior. That's going to be a tedious process, but I'm going to have to try my best. I'm probably going to have to early promote him at level 10, and then just try to field him boss kills or something to get him up to level 5 warrior, so that I can get this swordmaster that appears later. That's the only reason I'm using Bartre. Normally I would not condone using him at all. This swordmaster is really not worth it. I just have to get her for the purposes of this playthrough. So yeah, Mecha, what do you think about Bartre?
Yeah, Bartre's really bad. A good case though for bases being more important than growth, because his strength growth is 50%, his speed growth is 40%, so you'd think he'd be really good. But his base speed is just so bad that he doesn't even double soldiers, so that is terrible.
Not doubling soldiers is awful.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully though, I've seen a 0% growth run where Bartre does end up promoted level 5 in time to recruit that late game swordmaster, so I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, that's we'll see how it goes. Alright, then it's time to take a look at the best unit, the absolute amazing unit right here. Will totally carry this one. No, I'm just joking, guys. She's a 1 out of 5 star. This is Rebecca. I know I'm gonna aggro a whole fuck ton of people right now, because Rebecca's like the sacred waifu of the Fire Emblem 7 fanboys, because ooh, she's so cute with the green hair and blah blah blah. No, she sucks. She's an archer. I'm just gonna spoil this right now. Every single archer in this game gets a 1 out of 5 star because archers are bad. Her base stat sucks. Yes, I know that you can probably get her up. If you constantly spoon feed her kills, you can get her up to a sniper and she can do something. But no, there's only one archer in this game that is worth using, and she doesn't show up for quite a long time. Rebecca, while her growths are good, she is a 1 out of 5 star because archers suck at enemy face. What that means is that you can't really use her viably at enemy face to retaliate, because units are just going to attack her from one range, so she can't really do shit. Because you can't do shit at enemy face, which is where the majority of the action happens in Fire Emblem, archers are just bad. So Rebecca's a horrible unit. What do you say, Mecha?
Yeah, if the enemies weren't so bad, then if Rebecca had good stats, then there would be a niche for her, but this is not the case, so Rebecca's bad. She's also another victim of where in FE7, weapon might is doubled instead of tripled for effective might, because, you know, even if she were good at taking on flyers, she just does less damage than she would in any other game. So that is just another, that's just rubbing salt in the wound. That just makes Rebecca even worse than she already is. Just like, lol, 4 base strength.
Yeah, because there are a lot of Pegasus Knights in Hector hard mode, so you normally think she'd be good at taking those down, but she doesn't even do that.
Awful unit. Would not recommend.
Alright, well...
but you're gonna have to use her anyway.
Yeah, pretty much. So what... I think no one will be surprised at this Mecha. I think we're just gonna get it over with right away. 5 out of 5 stars, best unit in the game. Marcus will carry the run. He is an amazing unit. If you don't think Marcus is good, then you are 2012 Manx or the worst Fire Emblem player in the world.
Marcus is just so good. In the regular run, you're actually going to have to hold him back a little bit because, quote unquote, I hate saying this, but sucking EXP actually matters in a ranked run.
Yeah.
Unless you're like, you can do it 2 different ways, right? You can either do it the way most people do it, is just use Marcus to weaken people so that other people can kill them easily, or you can do it the other way where you go through early game like LTC mode and just kill everything with Marcus, and then you arena use for like 50 turns later on to make up for it and get the XP back, which is an option. I don't know if anyone's ever done it that way. I think someone has, so it might be possible, but knowing you'll probably want to feed all the scrubs all the kills, so...
We'll see. We'll see. Alright, so yeah.
Marcus is still really good.
Yeah, 5 out of 5?
10 out of 5.
10 out of 5. Okay. Micah continues to fuck up my ranking system. Alright, so there's one recruitable character here. Guess who we need to talk to this guy with? This guy, get it, Micah? Because his name is Guy. So let's talk a little bit about Guy. So, Guy's the first Myrmidon you get. He's not as awesome as Rutger from Fire Emblem 6, who people often compare him to. But he has a very, very good base skill and speed, as you might expect from a Myrmidon. It's a very impressive 70% speed growth, which is really nice. Although I do have some issues with Guy because his strength growth is really low, and he tends to get strength screwed a little bit, at least in my playthroughs. So, and I just don't like Myrmidons in general because they're locked to swords, and swords are bad in the Game Boy Advance Fire Emblem because they're not javelins, they're hand axes. Still, normally I would rate Guy a 2 out of 5 stars, but in Hector hard mode I rate him 2 out of 5 stars simply because he gets those nice, juicy hard mode bonuses, which really helps him out a lot. He can double a lot of the enemies, and he comes with a killing edge. So for that reason alone, I rate him 2 out of 5 stars. What do you say, Mecca?
2 out of 5, 3 out of 5 probably. I think he's really nice early game because a lot of your units don't one-round kill enemies, and he's one of the few people who can actually do it with the killing edge without critting. Because his base strength is actually really good, and obviously his speed is really good. But then later on, you just want people that move like 8 tiles and throw javelins at people, so he kind of becomes useless.
Yeah.
Not useless, but just not very useful. You don't really need all that speed anymore to double enemies because they get slower compared to the player characters. And his strength is just really bad. It doesn't have 1-2 range. And also we sent you to German chapter instead of Kenneth by training him, so he's another guy I would feed to Vaida if I needed to. I actually did that in another draft. I do that a lot apparently.
So, also, one of the things that I really hate about Guy, I also always call him Guy, but I guess it's Guy.
Yeah, don't tell me to call him Guy.
He only has 5 con, and that really fucks him over because he loses a lot of speed from the killing edge. In this chapter we get Merlinus. You can deploy him every single chapter. There's seldom a downside to not deploying him. He gains a level every time he survives a battle, and he actually have growth rates. He will pretty much always get a point in hit points, skill, speed, luck, and sometimes defense and resistance whenever he survives a battle. Why Merlinus has a 90% skill growth, I don't really know. I guess he needs to hit things. But he also has the highest con in the game, so for that reason alone I rank him 5 out of 5 stars. Because, you know, there's... you could rank him 1 out of 5 stars, you could rank him 5 out of 5 stars or no stars. I mean, at the end of the day, he's just a free unit, so why not deploy him? What do you think about Merlinus, Mecca?
There were some really heated discussions like 10 years back or something about whether Merlinus counted as a unit or not. Which is really stupid because this is like the stupidest thing ever to argue over. Merlinus is obviously great. I think this is like the one chapter where there's a bit of an opportunity cost in fielding him, because he can get attacked by the reinforcements and slow you down. But for the rest of the chapters, there's no reason to bring him there. It really doesn't matter if he levels up or not. It really doesn't matter if he promotes or not. But it's pretty cool, I guess.
He doesn't affect your he doesn't affect your experience rank, does he?
No, because his levels are all free.
Oh, right.
I don't think he really gains EXP. He just levels up. Like you can see this. The thingy next to the E from EXP, it doesn't actually have text next to it. Like actually have numbers. See. So I think he just levels up and doesn't really get EXP.
So Merlinus actually has supports, but they're really slow, and if you're doing a ranked run, you'll never really see them. And he also has the Darkness affinity, which is not a great affinity. I think he supports with Marcus, Nino, and Vaida, so his support cast is kind of limited. Why would you ever keep Marcus?
Actually Marcus.
Why would you keep Marcus next to him? I actually like his support with Marcus, because Marcus is going like, guarding the convoy is an important dude, and Merlinus goes like, no, not really. You should you should be out there fighting.
Oh yeah, I remember. It is Nino, Vaida, Marcus. You're right.
Yeah, and if you get Merlinus up to level 20, he will actually become a wagon, like in Fire Emblem 6, and at some point he'll become pretty much unhittable. But you don't really gain anything out of this, because since he can't kill anything, enemies will just go for him and they'll not kill themselves on enemy face, which is not good for you. So at the end of the day, he's kind of, you know, it's nice to have him moving around as a wagon. There's no reason not to, but he doesn't really give you much. But I give him a 5 out of 5 stars.
It's a dodging tent. What more could you want?
It's a yeah, he's the most evasive tent ever. All right, we also got another unit over here. We got Urk. Urk's the first mage you get. You can train him in Linda's story if you play that, and that's definitely recommended. But because while Urk's bases are very good for a level 1 unit, they're not fantastic for this map. He also comes with a Thunder Tome that slows him down a little bit, so he won't double anything on this map, except for some of the soldiers. I do like Urk though. He has pretty balanced growth rates on average. He's kind of like the Lou of Fire Emblem 7. He's got a 50% magic growth and a 40% speed growth, if I remember correctly. So he's a serviceable unit. I personally find the other Sage that joins later in the game a lot better of a unit, but Urk's a very respectable candidate. I'm not even counting the third mage. So I rate Urk a 3 out of 5 stars, simply because he's a mage, he's a decent mage, he can do some nice damage, and yeah, what do you think, Mecha?
I like Urk quite well. He's not bad at all. The thing is, his magic isn't very impressive. I think it's worse than his speed, growth-wise.
Yeah, it might be 40%, 50% actually when I think about it.
Yeah, I think it is. But this isn't a huge issue because when you use magic, you hit the resistance stat, and enemy resistance is usually a lot lower than their defense stat. So you usually two-shot things anyway. And Urk is pretty fast, so he'll usually double and kill something. His main issue is his durability, which you can see at base is already pretty bad, and the growths don't really help. So that can be an issue, so you kind of have to protect him. I do like him. Like, even though there is a Sage that is better statistically when that Sage joins, the thing is that Urk is around so much earlier and has so much potential of his own that there's really no reason to ditch him when you get that Sage. Like, he can just use both. You should really just judge Urk by his own merits, not how he compares to people of the same class, because they're really both very good units.
True.
I mean, not like Marcus level, but he's still pretty good. So like 3 out of 5 is fair for him.
I think that if you take your time to give Urk a couple of levels in Len's story, he could potentially be a 4 out of 5 stars if his bases go up a little bit. Because if you get
for sure.
If you get his base speed up to the point where he doubles the units in this chapter, he becomes an absolute beast.
Yeah, I think right now what he does is kind of misleading because he's using Thunder, which weighs him down a little bit, but once you buy him a Fire Tome, he can actually double some slower enemies already.
Yeah. He also comes with a Goddess icon. Right, so let's talk a little bit about Priscilla. So Priscilla, second healer you get, she's a lot better than Serra for the sole reason that she has a mount. Her growth rates are pretty much what you'd expect from a Troubadour. She has a lot of luck and speed, so she gets a lot of avoidance. She won't really be able to dodge hits early on, but once she gets a couple of levels, she should be relatively safe. For the most part, she is a mounted heal staff, and for that reason, I give her 4 out of 5 stars. 1 extra star for simply being mounted. It's always nice to have a healer that can reach units more easily. What do you say, Micah?
I don't think her stats are relevant at all until she promotes. Like, she should not. Whoa, I can't talk. She should never see combat before she promotes because she can't counterattack. So anytime she gets attacked, she nearly gets KO'd and she doesn't counter. So what's the point? And her magic doesn't matter because she can just use Ment to top people off.
Yeah.
It's decent. Once she promotes, like, it depends on what level you promote because healers level up so slowly until you get Physic and Barrier. It takes forever to even get her to level 10, and most people are afraid to promote early for some reason, even though it's like a pitfall. But once she's promoted, it's actually really good, depending on when you do it. But just Mounted Healer is really good, because she can like rescue people and heal people and like ferry people around. It's just a very nice utility unit.
Yeah.
But levels up really slowly. I think 4 out of 5 is fair.
And she has 4 cons, so she can still be rescued very easily, which is nice. Alright, so...
Yeah, people can lift horses in this game.
Florina first. Florina is the first Pegasus Knight you get. Like with many other units in this game, you can train Florina in Lynn's story, which can make her a lot better. Florina is a really good unit. I like her a lot. She has really solid growth rates. In particular, she has like an absurdly high strength growth of 50%, which is more than you'd expect for a Pegasus Knight of her size.
50%? What?
Yeah, she has a 50%, check it up. I mean, I got the growths right here. Yeah,
You're wrong. It's 40%.
40%, my bad. But it's still really high. 40% strength growth is a lot higher than you'd expect. I don't know why I thought it was 50%.
You're bad.
But you like, if this girl was in Fire Emblem 6, she'd have like 20% strength growth or something like that. But no, they gave her a lot of strength. Her con is very shitty. She gets slowed down by Iron Lances, but luckily her speed should be good enough so that she should be able to start doubling once you give her a couple of levels. I rate Florina 4 out of 5 stars simply because she's a flyer, and that's extremely valuable in this game. She can pick up units, she can ferry them. There's a lot of things you can do with Florina. Like for example, I know that in an upcoming guidance chapter, she's very good at flying around and talking to a certain NPC to end the chapter really quickly. I mean, just a flyer just gives her automatic 4 stars in my opinion, because there's so much she can do. Although her 8 is, I think she has the 8 to pick up most units in her army at this point.
So you can pick up anyone, yeah, even Oswin.
Yeah, so what do you think about Florina, Mecca?
If this was like a limo trade Farina, I would honestly just give her 5 stars. She's just that good, because Limb Mode gives her access to a bunch of EXP. She can use the Angelic Robe and the Energy Ring you get in there very well, and it actually makes her durable enough to like take kills on her own and just start one round and KOing very quickly. But this is like Hector hard mode base level Florina, and that's actually like a very different thing because her speed is actually kind of bad for like a Pegasus Knight, like 9 speed, and then she gets weighed down by everything. That's like Eliwood level speed almost. That's like bad, and then her strength is bad, her durability is bad, so she becomes a lot worse at fighting. So while flying is still really good, she's really tough to train up now, and that's going to be really annoying if you want to train her. I actually like the other Pegasus Knight you get later better than Farina when you don't have limb mode behind her.
Right.
So there's that. So I think this Florina is like 3 to 4 stars, but if the emote were here, it's easy 5 stars. Right.
Okay. Then we got the Kale and Phelan squad down here. We'll start by talking about Lynn. She's the third and final protagonist you meet. Lynn is in a very poor place. Sure, Lynn has combined some of the highest growth rates in the entire game. I believe her total is like 355, which is ridiculously high. I think only like Ninian and Merlinus have higher growth rates combined. Despite Lynn having really, really good growth rates, I mean, she's pretty much the fastest character in the game, and she'll most likely cap both skill, speed, and luck. She's still in a very weird spot because Lynn is essentially a Myrmidon, but unlike Guy, who has 15 skill and speed, Lynn doesn't really have that much speed. She has enough speed to double most units she goes up against.
I thought you said she was the fastest. Now what is it?
I mean, she's not the fastest at base. She has one of the best speed growths in the game.
Yeah, but Guy's growth is higher too.
Okay, well, she's the second fastest character. Happy now?
No, never happy while Lynn is on screen.
So Lynn, while she is one of the main characters and should quote-unquote be one of the best characters in the game, she's actually far from it. So I rate Lynn a 2 out of 5 stars. She would have been a 1 out of 5 star were it not for her personal weapon, the Manikari, which is kind of useful at the beginning. It's like a rapier that has a little bit more might to it and some crit. Once Lynn promotes, she gets access to bows, which is kind of shitty. I think Lynn's promotion is probably one of the most lackluster promotions in the game because she essentially becomes the Swordmaster, but without the plus 15% crit bonus that Swordmasters enjoy. Had she gotten that, she'd be a lot better. Her con means that she gets slowed down 5 points from using a Steel Sword, so she can't really use heavy weapons to increase her attack power. She comes with a base strength of 5, so she struggles dealing any meaningful damage at all. And at this point in the game, you're facing so many Lance users. The next chapter is going to be crawling with archers and Lance users. Lynn's going to struggle to find any meaningful kills. And like Hector, who can use his Wolf Veil to one-shot cavalry, Lynn cannot one-shot cavalry with her Manikari. So I just find her completely bad. If you train her up in Lynn's story, she can become decent, but no, she's awful. 2 out of 5.
Yeah, I know there's like a lot of Lynn fans who will be like, damn, thanks, you're really angry at Lynn. But like, I mean, you might like her personality and everything. You might like her animations where she like flip-flops around and crits, and that's pretty cool looking. And the Manikari is a good weapon. But good God, Lynn is like really bad in gameplay. I don't know why people like her that much. Because, like, I just want to emphasize one more thing because Mang's covered the most thing, but her durability is really, really, really bad. Like, her HP is like, these HP and defense stat values, they were on like base level Urk roughly.
Yeah.
But then unlike Urk, she takes counters every time she attacks because she can only use swords.
Yep.
And as you said, everyone uses lances, everyone and their mom. There's like no axe users around anymore. So she just takes a bunch of damage every time she attacks, so she needs to get healed. And then she also gets 2-shot by almost every enemy. So Lynn is almost never safe from while there's enemies around, and that's really a big liability on enemy phase. So, and then she also doesn't counter at 2 range, right? So every archer and every mage out there is going to go for her. And that's just awful. I really hate using Lynn for that reason. If you do train her, she does become quite a bit better. And the Manikari is pretty good for like 1 round in Cavaliers sometimes, but really frill unit, really annoying to use.
Yeah, she's bad, and this is actually the Lynn you get if you don't use... I mean, normally if you start Lynn's story, she starts at a level 1. If you don't use her in Lynn's story, you get this version of her instead, which is the level 4 Lynn, but she's hardly any better than she was at level 1. She's gotten like a few points every here and there, but her durability is still absolutely utter crap. If the game had given you a Lance Reaver sword early on, then I think that Lynn would have been a lot better, but...
Yeah, but like at some point that will break though. You can only use it so many times.
but God, it would have been helpful to begin with.
Yeah, for sure.
But she does have some quick supports with Eliwood and Hector, which is nice. So we're gonna try to get some of those out. She has the Wind Affinity, which is nice. Since I have the Wind Affinity as my Tactician bonus, which means that Lynn will get some minor bonuses to hit and avoid, but it's not gonna help her out any. So Lynn, ladies and gentlemen, and here is our Manikari. 80 hit, 8 mites, 20 crit. I mean, it's a good sword. It's like a killing edge that's good against cavalry and armor knights. Problem is, there's almost no sword-wielding cavaliers, and all armor knights have lances, so it's gonna be really tricky to use. And of course, Fire Emblem 7 only doubles might, as Mecha told us in a couple episodes back, so it only really has 16 might, which is not that great. Now, Lyn comes with a gem. This is kind of important. If you play Lyn story mode, this gem will have increased value based on how much funds you acquired in Lyn story. If you do really well and you get as much cash as you possibly can, you can actually make Lyn start out with a white gem worth 10,000 gold, which is really going to help your funds ranking. But baseline, she just starts with a blue gem. I think if you do poorly, she can actually start with a red gem, but I'm not sure.
Yep, that's true.
So, but you get the blue gem, which is nice. Alright, that's a long introduction to Lyn. Let's talk about the two cavaliers. We'll start off with Sain. So Sain is the classic green cavalier. He specializes in strength. He has a lot of strength. And I think Kent is a little bit faster than him, but he has a lot stronger than Kent. So he's sort of like, quote-unquote, the offensive cavalier. His defenses aren't that great, but he hits really hard, and he has a 60% strength growth, which means that his strength growth, he will most likely cap his strength, and he'll hit really hard. And being sane and being a cavalier, starting out with base speed of 7, he will probably reach a point where he'll start doubling if you're not too unlucky. I mean, he has a 40% speed growth, which so it will grow reasonably well. I like Sain a lot. I rate him a 4 stars out of 5. In hindsight, I guess I probably should rate Lowen the same, because he's pretty much on par with Lowen. But I like Sain a lot, because he usually hits very hard, and he doubles. And his defenses aren't awful either. I mean, Kent is quote-unquote the defensive armor knight, and sure, Sain has a 20% defense growth, which is not fantastic, but he'll soon get enough avoidance where he'll reasonably start dodging anyway, and he has a pretty high hit point growth at 80%, so he'll be reasonably tanky. He's a good candidate for the Draco Shield, if you ask me, if you want to actually use Sain. But the best part is probably to use him together with Kent, because he has a very fast support with Kent, so you can probably get them up to maybe a C rank or a B rank in a ranked run, and I think that will help you out really well. What do you think about Sain, Mecha?
Yeah, he's good. I mean, he's a cavalier. You can't really go wrong with cavaliers. I think he's slightly better than Lowen, but not by too much. Either way, they will probably go through the game pretty well once raised, because even Lowen's offenses are bad, but he can still make it. So Sain definitely makes it, because the speed is good enough to double at some point, and he will at least 2-hit KO most things, because his strength is really good.
Yeah.
One issue with Sain sometimes is that he kind of has trouble hitting things. Like most of the time, he has a weapon triangle advantage, because Cavalier and Paladin classes are broken like that, but when he doesn't, it can be kind of shaky because his skill isn't all that good. And he has durability issues until he's grown a little bit, or you give him that Draco Shield that you got. That is an option.
Yeah, he has a very shaky skill growth of 35% and a skill base of 5, so he can get a little bit screwed, but as you said, since Cavaliers always will have a weapon triangle advantage pretty much in every situation they're in, this is really easily remedied. Then we got Kent's. Kent's quote-unquote the defensive armor knight of the two. He has...
Armor knight? You said armor knight again.
Cavalier.
He only has twice as much move as an armor knight.
Well, not quite. I think Armor Knight's a 4, so almost.
Just promote him.
Yeah. Kent's virtue is that he has a lot of defense. He's sort of like an Armor Knight on a horse, so I wasn't completely wrong. He is actually slightly faster than Sain, but he has 20% less strength, so he's not going to hit as hard. Again, Kent is a really solid unit. I'll give him 4 out of 5 stars simply because, you know, he's a Cavalier with decent base stats and growth rates. You can't really go wrong with Cavaliers. I pretty much cover everything I needed to say with Sain. Kent is literally just Sain, but with a little bit more defense and a little bit less strength.
Yeah, the thing about Kent is that he's like slightly faster than Kane, but not by a whole lot. I think it's like 1 point at base and maybe 10% growth, but Sain's strength is significantly better. So I think Sain's probably the better one out of the two if you want to pick between them. But Kent is still really good because you can't go wrong. I think the only thing we need to add about the Cavaliers is if you train them in Lyn mode, they'll obviously be a lot better, and you also have the option to use a Night Crest on one of them after like getting them to level 10 plus, which is easy. You can even like boss abuse to get them to 20, but it's not necessary, and that gives you like a second Marcus to use, which is really broken and really fun to do. That
is true, because normally if you play Lyn on normal mode, you have to force the Knight's Crest on Wallace, but if you play on hard mode, you don't need to do that, so you can actually give them to Kent or Sain instead, which is basically a free Knight's Crest, which is kind of cool. So yeah, 4 out of 5 stars?
Yeah, easily.
Alright, then we got one guy to talk about. Not much to say here. Will, right here, is basically just Rebecca with slightly better base stats. Compared to Rebecca, he's stronger, but he's slower. I actually had to use both Will and Rebecca in my draft run of Fire Emblem 7 that I have up on this channel. And funnily enough, if you support Will and Rebecca together, they're not awful if you give them some levels, but in a ranked run, Will is complete garbage, 1 out of 5 stars. I did spoil this, that the other archer would have 1 out of 5 stars. You've already seen how Rebecca performs in this run, and if you're still not convinced that Will is a 1 out of 5 stars, I mean, have you even been watching this Let's Play? You've seen how much Rebecca struggles to even kill someone that's on low hit points because of her low attack power and Bo's shitty stats. And Will isn't really anything different. I mean, he has, as I said, slightly better bases than Rebecca, but only slightly. He can't double, he can't do any meaningful damage aside from chip damage. He can't even one-round the Pegasus Knights in this chapter because Bo's are awful. And yeah, I don't see any way to remedy this guy unless you like spoon-feed him kills constantly over the game. He might be able to turn into a good sniper that can kill shit. And I definitely have seen him at his best, it's just that he takes so long to get there. And I think what people really need to understand is, we give him 1 out of 5 stars, not because he's a terrible unit that can never be used, but compared to all the other units which are already good at the beginning, he is bad. Like, you've seen how good Oswin is, you've seen how good Marcus is, you've seen how good all the other units are. And they don't need any investment. Will needs like 5 chapters worth of kills before he can start doing anything meaningful. And that's why he gets a 1 out of 5 stars. Not sure if you have anything to add to that, Mecca.
Yeah, and then even if you train him, it's just a guy that kills 1 enemy on player phase and doesn't do anything on enemy phase. So it's really likely. It's not like you're gonna get any return on your investment.
Yeah.
I do think Will is useful in this chapter though, and I wonder if Max can figure out how. I do kind of like it for that one purpose, but other than that, yeah, there's never really any reason to field Will. I can't really talk.
Alright, well, starting with Raven. So Raven is a enemy mercenary. He needs to be recruited by Priscilla because they have the same hair color. So, you know, that's Fire Emblem logic for you. Raven's a pretty... I mean, he gets a lot of love because he's, like, edgy and stuff. I personally don't like Raven a lot. His growth rates are really balanced, but his defenses are really frail, and he's locked to swords. He's way better than Lyn, that's for sure, because he has better bases, but he suffers from many of the same issues in that he's locked to swords, and since he's really weak defensively, aside from a pretty high hit point pool, he'll always take damage from engagements, and there's not a lot of axe users at this point. And coming up on the Dread Isle arc where we're heading, there's a shit ton of shamans and monks and mages that all attack from 2 range. And Raven with his pitiful resistance will just be a sitting duck for those guys. So normally I would rate Raven 2 out of 5 stars, same level as Lyn, but because this is Hector hard mode, he gets a substantial bonus to his bases, and thus I bump him up to 3 out of 5 stars in Hector hard mode, simply because he has 15 base speed and 10 base strength. So if you give him a steel sword or an iron blade, or just a regular iron sword in some cases, he will actually be able to one-run certain guys. You could also give him Geitz Killing Edge, if you still have that, which I don't. 4 is left. I mean, he can make pretty good use of that. He does have really low luck though, so he's very he often falls victim to low percentage criticals if you're unlucky. This has happened multiple times with me, which kind of sucks. What do you think about Raven, Mecca?
I think you're underselling how good he is. Like, he doesn't have a mount, so that doesn't make him like a 5-star unit, but these bases are really, really, really good. Like, I think he has the best base offense in the game besides like Marcus, because he doubles everything with 50 base speed. Even if he didn't have Hector hard mode bonuses, his bases are still really good. His strength and speed are insane. He one-runs just about everything. His promotion is also really good because he promotes the hero and then he gets access and he gets 1-2 range. So once you promote him, that issue where he doesn't counter enemies is fixed. So like before promotion, it's a problem that he doesn't like counter anything, but at the same time, your other units also kind of suck at countering at 2 range. Like try giving Pent or Sain or Lowen a javelin and see how good they are. On player phase, they'll often need to use like better weapons. So there will usually be someone they can attack at 2 range and not get countered. For like at the beginning of the archers, you have to like trade everyone their javelins so they can counter. You can't even always do that.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying the 1 range is not as big of a problem as it might be, and like Raven's durability also becomes really good after promotion. So like before promotion, yeah, 3-star for Raven, sure, but after promotion, he's like 4 or 5 stars easily. So I'd give Raven at least 4 stars.
All right.
I think he's. And as for the luck. Because it's Tactician's affinity, he actually has more crit avoid than the 2 luck suggests. So I think it takes like maybe 10 skill on an enemy to actually have crit on him, or some kind of crit weapon. But there's more units with like low luck than this, so I don't think it's really fair to like penalize Raven just for this. I think, for example, Kent also has really shitty luck.
But luck's the best stat, Mecca.
That's true.
What?
Okay, fair enough. 1 star.
Alright, and in this cell we also have Lucius. You need to recruit Raven and then talk to Lucius with Raven to get Lucius. If you talk, there is a conversation with Lynn, but she just talks to Lucius and just says hi, and then you don't get him anyway. Yes, this is a guy, by the way, just in case you didn't know. It's a trap! Lucius is a monk, and he's a bit of a glass cannon. This is very much a glass cannon. He has very good magic and speed, but awful luck and defense. And he's a bit of a magic wall, though, at 60% resistance. Lucius is a unit that I have very mixed feelings about. On one point, I really don't like light magic, because light magic's pretty shit with really low mites. Another side, Lucius has some great potential on the Dread Isle for taking down shamans, because if you train Lucius, especially in Lynn's story, he can actually get to a point where he can easily one-round the shamans on the boat map. So there is a boat map coming up in a couple of chapters where the entire western flank is filled with dark mages, and Lucius can actually reliably one-round all of them and take like no damage back in return. So I've seen Lucius be really effective. But I tend to not use him simply because I don't like light magic, and I just prefer training up Serra with staves and then promoting Serra to a bishop instead. But I give Lucius a 3 out of 5 star, because he has potential to be good, but in my opinion his bases are a little bit shaky for his turn time, and his durability is awful, so you need to be very, very careful with him. What do you think about Lucius, Mega?
I like Lucius quite a bit. I think he's about the same as Urk, really. They're both very reliant on being trained in limbo. If you don't train them, they get a lot worse. But if they are trained, then they're pretty good. Like Lucius, you know, he said his magic is really good, but his type of magic is really bad. And that's really what gives him about the same attack power as Urk for a long time, until Lucius's growth really starts to make a difference. Because, you know, Urk can use Thunder, which is really good, and Lucius just uses Light, which is really shit. So they have about the same attack power, really. For a long time.
You don't get access to Shine Tomes until very much later in the game.
But those weigh him down, and they're like shitty and shit, so yeah. I think he's about to start, but he does get like C-Staves upon promotion instead of E-Staves, which can be really helpful, because then he can use Barrier right away, and other kind of cool staves. I don't think it's really easy to get him to one-round Shamans on the boat map on Hector hard mode, because their HP and resistance are just good enough to where Lucius can't do it, but maybe with a lot of training. I don't know. I haven't crunched the numbers, but it seems pretty hard. It's just kind of hard to get Lucius a lot of enemy phase actions because he's so frail. But once he promotes, he's pretty good.
Yep.
I like him. So I'd say like same rating as Urk, so I probably gave him like 3 or 4 stars, so same for him, really.
Alright. Okay. So this is Canas. Canas is the first and only dark magic user you get in Fire Emblem 7. You do get one that can use dark magic, but he doesn't join until the last chapter. Many people really like Canas. I personally don't. Canas has pretty low growth rates on average. His bases are okay for his join time, but the problem with Canas is that he doesn't really like he has decent survivability compared to like Urk and Lucius, but that doesn't really say much. He's still pretty squishy. His speed growth is kind of low. Dark magic is very heavy in this game, much heavier than it was in Fire Emblem 6. So he gets slowed down by almost every single tome in the game, and some of the later tomes will just completely cripple his speed to the point where he'll never really be able to double. A lot of people make the case that Canas is good because he can use the Luna Tome. The Luna Tome is a tome that's very powerful in this game. It has great crit, insane stats, and it avoids resistance. And if you crit with the Luna, you pretty much kill everything except for the last boss in the game. But the counter-argument to this is that you get another character in the final map that can wield Luna just as good as Canas. In fact, he can, in most cases, wield it better than Canas. And you don't, like, because of the inclusion of this character, Canas is rendered completely obsolete. Like, the one good thing about Canas that would make him very unique is taken away by the fact that this character joins with an S rank in Dark Magic and can just perfectly use the Luna Tome. So that kind of, you know, that kind of takes away from his utility. I struggle really to find any use for Canas as a unit. He has a... You can fight the mages of the Dread Isle pretty decently, I guess, since he has decent resistance, and Dark Magic actually hits hard enough to go through the mages' resistance. But I rate him a 2 out of 5 stars, simply because...
2 out of 5, really?
Yep, I rate him a 2 out of 5 stars. I feel like Mecha is really gonna disagree
I am
with
triggered.
This.
No.
Okay,
so
2 out of 5
let's keep
stars.
this civilized, alright? So, are you saying that because there is one character in one last chapter that Canas is rendered that has like good dark magic, that Canas is rendered useless for the entire game?
No, that's not what I'm saying, Mecca. I'm saying that many people, when people are asked why Canas is useful, they often bring up the fact that he can use the Luna Tome to do like 2-shot the Fire Dragon and 1-shot Nurgle. But because you already have Athos who can do the same thing with no investment, that argument is rendered obsolete.
Okay, so you can just use Athos, who can use Luna in the final chapter. Or you can use both in the final chapter and have 2 Luna users, and that's even better. So I don't really think that's a good point. So anyway, the thing with Canas is like, yeah, Luna and Nosferatu and the other dark magic tomes, they're kind of situational, not great. They have their uses here and there. Like there are situations in Hector Heart mode where having a Luna user with high resistance is really good, like in Cog of Destiny, but we'll get into that when we get there. But like Canas with just Flux is actually a pretty good unit, I think. If you compare his average stats, like what he's likely to get like level 10 or something, or even level 15 and promote him, if you compare him to like Urk and Lucius, he doesn't really look that bad. Like they're pretty much the same. I think Canas is actually a little bulkier. He has really good promotion bonuses, which fixes his major issue, which is low speed, because I think effectively he gets like 3 or 4 attack speed out of it, because he gets a huge speed boost and a slight boost to Constitution. And because he's a magic user, just like Urk and Lucius, he hits on resistance, which is very low. So even if his attack power was bad, it wouldn't be a problem. But Flux is actually just as powerful as Thunder. So if you've used Thunder for quite a bit, you know it's a good tome. So Canas does actually just quite a bit of damage. He just needs to help doubling, and he doesn't really do that reliably until promotion, but once he promotes, he's actually just fine. So I actually like Canas a lot. I think he's decent. The thing is, his base level's 8, so he doesn't take as much effort to get to promotion as like Urk and Lucius, because their base levels are pretty low. Like Lucius joins at like level 3 in last chapter, and Urk is like level 1. You can train him in limbo though to like compensate. So they're really, I think Canas, Urk, and Lucius are all kind of similar, and they should all get like 3 to 4 stars. That is my opinion.
Yeah, maybe I'm underselling Canas. I find him tedious to use because, as I said, his low con means that he gets slowed down by tomes, and I mean, maybe because I'm not really used to early promoting at level 10, that's why I find Canas to be kind of lackluster. But yeah, you might be right. I might be underselling him a little bit, but yeah.
I'm sure, like Luna and Nosferatu are really heavy, but so are the other Anima and Light tomes, right? So you don't really want to use those too often either. Yeah. So most of the time you're just using the basic tomes and you're doing fine, because hitting magic is really good.
Fine. You have swayed me with your cold, stupid mecha logic, and I retract my judgment, and I bump Canas up to a 3 out of 5 stars. Happy?
Yay!
Yeah.
Okay, my work here is done. Bye.
Yeah, bye, mecha. Okay, we'll continue. But we have a new unit to talk about. It's Dart right here. He also comes with the torch. Dart's your first pirate. He's all right. He reminds me a lot of Gonzalez from Fire Emblem 6. He has a very low skill growth, but he's a very high strength and speed. In fact, both his strength and speed growth is above 60%, which is really, really good. It's a little bit frail, though. Only 20% defense growth, so...
His only redeeming feature is his sturdiness.
Says Fargus, and I think Fargus was referring to his hit points, which are indeed okay, but... Yeah, I find Dart's constitution is a little low. He only has 10 con. Most of the other axe users in this game have around 13 to 14, so... If Dart ever uses... I mean, he gets slowed down by hand axes, and he loses 5 points of speed from a steel axe, which is quite significant. Berserkers in this game are really good, but the Ocean Seal, which you require them to promote, which can only be found in the Descent chapter, it's worth an absurd amount of gold. I think you can sell it for like 25,000 or something, if I'm...
Yeah.
So, you really gotta ask yourself, you get another pre-promoted Berserker in this game who's really good, you gotta ask yourself, is Dart really worth it? I mean, you know, 25,000 gold is a lot of money. You could be selling that and get a lot of equipment out of it. But still, I give Dart a 3 out of 5 stars because he is a decent unit. I mean, he's not too hard to train. You can promote him to a Berserker, and Berserkers are really good, even in Fire Emblem 7. They don't enjoy their insane 30% crit boost that they did in Fire Emblem 6, but they still get a pretty nice crit bonus. They're certainly a lot better than Swordmasters because they can wield hand axes. And overall, Dart's not going to let you down if you train him. But I am cautiously giving him a 3-star, bordering on maybe 2-star, simply because there's such a big investment you have to spend to promote him since the Ocean Steel is so expensive. So what do you think about Dart, Mecha?
Not really a fan, because as you said, the Ocean Steel is very expensive, and if you're planning on recruiting Farina, that's already a lot of gold. Now, I guess that most of your audience probably isn't going to do like a ranked run. And if you're not doing a ranked run, then you can easily afford to recruit both Farina and promote Dart. But it's still such a load of gold that you don't really need to spend, because Dart doesn't bring anything special. Like one thing you didn't touch on really, but that I personally don't like about Dart is his base speed is kind of average. It's just 8, so it takes a while for him to get doubling. His strength is really good, HP is really good. The Constitution being 10 is like whatever. You don't really need to use anything but Iron and Killer. But I guess not losing speed from Hand Axe would be nice, to be fair. I'm just not a fan of Dart. I also don't like his hit rate, because if he tries to attack someone in a force or something, he will usually miss, and that's bad because he only gets to attack once early on. And like this chapter is like filled with force, and he just can't hit anything. That's really annoying, especially if he uses a Hand Axe. So those are my problems with Dart. And also the Ocean Seal comes a little late for my taste. Like someone at Lowen, you can promote him early with a Night Crest, but Dart doesn't really have that option. So yeah, he just sits around unpromoted for a longer time than I would like it to. So I'd give Dart 2 stars, and I think I'm being generous, honestly.
Alright, well, he does come with a torch though, which is nice. Alright, so the retarded green unit that just joined our scene is called Fiora. She is the sister of Florina, as you might expect. And she is the second Pegasus Knight you get in this game. Fiora's basically, like, in terms of pure growth rates, she is a lot worse than Florina, but her bases are higher because she joins at a higher level. I mean, if you train them both side by side, Florina's usually going to turn out better, but Fiora's probably a little bit better in a ranked run, because as you can see, we haven't really given Florina an experience. And what's nice about Fiora is that she comes in with higher bases, so she can kind of pick up where Florina left off. And for that reason alone, you know, I mean, compared to Florina, if I can locate her growth rates, there we go. I do believe Florina has more strength. Actually, Florina has higher growth rates across the board in every single area, if I remember correctly. Fiora is just lower on average in every single area. I think her skill growth is a little bit higher at 60%. But I rate Fiora 4 or 5 stars simply because she's a flyer. I mean, it wouldn't be fair to rate her lower than Florina because she does everything that Florina does. So, and there's some uses for flyers, you know, transporting units and whatnot. Pretty good. And if you do take your time to train her, she's alright. I mean, her bases are pretty good. 13 speed is pretty decent. She's at a point where she's not stuck in Linland where she has like 10 base speed. Like if you have 10 base speed on the Dread Owl, usually not going to double things. But if you have 13, 14, 15, you're going to double most things. Her con is a little bit shit though. That sucks. 5 con is kind of bad. But at least that means her 8 score is high, which is good because you need the 8 score to be high to pick up certain units. I think she can pick up everyone except for... I think she can pick up everyone because I don't think we have anyone with a con over 15. So what do you think about Fiora?
No.
Oh my God.
I like her. I think 4 out of 5 stars is probably good. What I like about Fiora is like you don't have to train her, whereas Florina, if you don't train her in limb mode, then you saw how bad she was against the Steel Lance Pegasus Knight, so that says enough. And Fiora, as you said, you don't have to train her; she just joins pretty much battle ready. Her strength isn't spectacular or anything, and she loses speed from Iron Lances, which kind of sucks. But it's like salvageable. You can train her up pretty easily, and within 3 levels, she can promote if you're 1 or 2. And I think her resistance is like her main selling point over Florina. That's pretty high.
Oh yeah, 50%
sometimes.
resistance growth. That's pretty good actually.
Yeah, there are some chapters where having high resistance is very nice, especially if you like use it in combination with like a pure water or a barrier boost. But we'll probably see that later. So I assume Mags is going to use Fiora because he needs some kind of flyer.
Yeah, I would like to use her. She's certainly better than Florina at this point, and you do need flyers in this game. And well, I'm not too fond of the next Wyvern Knight that joins. So. Here's Legault. Legault's the second thief that joins you. You need to talk to him with any of your main 3 lords. I think Lynn, Hector, and Eliwood can all recruit him. And Legault.
Yes and no, but yeah, kind of.
So it's weird. Legault's he's a second thief, so he's kind of like, you know, if you didn't train Matthew, he comes in to pick up the scraps. I mean, he has much better bases than Matthew. Overall, I do believe like if you train both of them, I think Matthew ends up slightly better in terms of pure stats, but Legault has better bases and requires much less investment. But at the end of the day, if you don't plan to use the Fel contract on him, and I don't think I'm going to use the Fel contract because I'm probably just going to sell it since it's so valuable and we need it for the funds ranking. Really, the only thing you need a thief around for is open chest stealing, stuff like that. Vision and Fog of War. So, Legault kind of does exactly what Matthew does, but he does it a little bit better, since I do believe Matthew's stats are not anywhere near as good as this at this point. It's worth noting that Legault gets hard mode bonuses on Hector hard mode, which helps him out a little bit, helps the survivability out. I mean, he's fairly bulky for a thief. I mean, 29 hit points, 8 defense. It's pretty good, almost comes with capped speed, so he can pretty much steal anything. His strength growth isn't fantastic, but then again, you don't need Legault to do damage anyway. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, he's a thief. So I rank Legault a 3-star, 3-star or 5, because, you know, he's a Matthew that joins later. You know, Matthew gets 4 out of 5 stars in my book because he's available from the very start. He's got much better availability. But Legault is like 3 out of 5 stars because he does the exact same things as Matthew does, but just he comes later. What do you think about Legault?
Yeah. I think 3 stars is fair. So the thing about thieves is, as you said, they don't really need stats. When you open a chest, the game doesn't really ask you to have like certain stat benchmarks or anything. So they can be like interchangeable. Sometimes you need 2 thieves though. I think that makes a second thief just nice to have. Legault stats are, I think, strictly better than Matthew's, unless Matthew's like level 20. Matthew's strength and defense are particularly worse, if I believe. I think just, like hard mode bonuses, I think in general are very overrated, especially on a unit with like shitty growths, because they don't use personal growths, they use class growths, and those are really low, and they're only 5 levels in FE7 Hector hard mode, so they don't really change too much about him in general. He becomes a bit faster and a bit bulkier, but not that much. I think the only aspect of Legault that you didn't really touch upon was his higher constitution. He has 9 constitution, so he can use steel swords and only lose 1 speed. And since he's pretty fast to begin with, we'll usually double. I think you'll find him useful for like stealing kills here and there, because as we know with Matthew, thieves gain more XP than other classes, so he can help your experience rank for a little bit.
That is actually a really good point. I never thought about that before. Yeah, but the steel sword, Legault should be able to do very decent damage actually. Not like, he's not going to hit super hard, but he's going to hit hard enough to like kill units on half health or below. And yeah, as you said, experience rank is very important. So yeah, what do you? Yeah, you already said 3 out of 5 stars. So yeah, we get a new unit. It's Ninian. Ninian's your dancer unit of this game. Sadly, her availability isn't all that great. She kind of comes and goes a little bit due to being a very important plot character. You will eventually in some chapters get Nils instead, and what's important is that Ninian and Nils are essentially the same units. They share bases, they share experience, they share their level ups. So if you use Nils in Lynn's story, he's available I do believe in 3 chapters. You can actually level up Ninian beforehand. She will gain those levels because they transfer their powers back and forth between each other, having special dragon powers. Ninian herself is pretty much what you'd expect from a classic dancer. She doesn't have strength and skill because she doesn't need them because she won't be fighting, but she has very good speed, luck, and resistance growths, and pretty decent defense growth as well for a dancer, 30%, which is pretty cool. Although, for the most part, her stats doesn't really matter. You shouldn't really put her in enemy range anyway, but if you give her some level ups, then she can get to a point where she starts to dodge a lot of attacks, so she's fairly safe to use. Although this will negatively affect your combat ranking, so you shouldn't really do it. Ninian herself, being a dancer, I rate her a 5-star out of 5 because dancers are fantastic. Even in most Fire Emblem games where they can only refresh, they are still 5-star units in my opinion because of their amazing versatility and utility. But what makes Ninian so special is that you will get access to many different rings. She personally starts out with Ninian's Grace, which is a ring that you can use instead of refreshing an action. You can dance for them and you can increase their defense and resistance by +10 for 1 turn. This is absolutely insane.
I don't think the rings are the most significant thing about Ninian. It's really just how good dancing is that makes her a 5-star unit, I think.
Yeah.
You didn't really touch upon how amazing dancing is, but the reason it's so good is, first off, you get to use, like, for example, you can have Marcus attack 2 people on player phase. That's like the most obvious way to use your dancer is just using your best unit twice. But it also lets people move further. You can give someone like Eliwood like basically double his movement because he can move, do something, and then get danced and do something again. So it makes training weak characters a lot easier for like XP rank. Ninian herself also gets like free XP from dancing, so that's like a healer. That's XP no one's competing for. So that will be helpful for ranking. I don't think her combat, as you said, doesn't really matter. She should be avoiding, not even the combat rank barely even matters because it's so easy. But it's just if she is being attacked and she doesn't counter, and she might also die. So it's just really inefficient to have her attacked. So you should always keep her safe. Dancers are really hard to use perfectly, but if you plan out your turns, which Mangs doesn't do, so it might not be that great for him. But in general, the better you plan, the better a dancer is, and that's why Ninian is like a 5-star unit.
Also, another argument for something that I often see mentioned in comments from idiots is why field the dancer when you can just field another unit? This is one of the most common arguments I see used, like in favor of not fielding a dancer. Here's the thing, if you have 10 units, you have to divide experience evenly between those units. I mean, some of them generate their own experience via staves and stuff. If you substitute those units for a dancer, you have 9 units and a dancer, and the dancer doesn't take any experience, so you'll get more experience distributed between the remaining 9 units, and the dancer generates 10 experience for herself or himself whenever he or she dances. So that's a very good argument for fielding dancers. Overall, I think one of the reasons why people made so much fun of... I don't remember who it was, if it was Blazing Knight who it was who said that.
Yeah, he put her like top 15 worst classes or whatever, which is total bullshit.
Yeah, he said something like that. He hates dancers because he personally doesn't like using them. And I think that's why people crapped so much on Blazing Knight for such a long while. Because if you don't see the value of the dancer unit, then you really lack a fundamental understanding of how Fire Emblem works. And coming from me, that's very fucking rich. So, okay, so here is Isadora. Isadora is sort of like second paladin you get, and I'm pretty sure me and Mecha will disagree a little bit on her. I personally like Isadora quite a bit, but maybe not as much as Mecha likes her. So Isadora, she has overall, she's a little bit weaker than Marcus, base stats wise, but one thing that separates Isadora from the rest of the pre-promotes of this game is that she actually has really passable growth rates. In particular,
Who the fuck cares?
Let me finish.
Who the fuck cares? But go on.
She has her main selling point is a very high base speed of 16 and a very surprisingly good speed growth of 50%, which means that Isadora will almost always be in a position to double enemies. The issue with Isadora is that she's very frail. 28 hit points and 8 base defense means she will not survive very long on the front lines unless you can like put her on a forest or some other dodge tile. While her avoidance is very good, she goes down really fast to a couple of physical attackers, so she can't really tank the front lines like Marcus can. I rate Isadora 3 out of 5 stars because she is a pre-promoted unit, and she's sort of like a second Marcus that at least hits pretty hard, but she lacks Marcus's durability and therefore cannot like survive on the front lines like he can. One thing I really dislike about Isadora is that she has a really low con of 6, so if you give her a steel shard, she loses 4 points of speed. I know Mecha doesn't care about con, but I do. I think that 6 con is very low for a physical unit after promotion. I mean, she must have had like 4 con as a Cavalier, what the hell. But yeah, she's a solid pre-promote, 3 out of 5 stars. She can serve pretty well as a filler unit. I don't think she's going to be staying around on the main roster for long, but she's good where she's good where she's deployed. I mean, she can pull up some stuff. She's decent, and she also comes with some very good weaponry: a silver sword, a short spear, as well as a stat booster, Angelic Robe, which I think is the first Angelic Robe you actually get in Hector hard mode. So that's kind of nice. So what do you think about Isadora, Mecha?
I don't really disagree with the star rating. I might go like 3.5 stars, but that's just nitpicking. I like Isadora. Like, a lot of people are like, well, she's worse than Marcus and worse than Kent or Sain or whoever you promoted first with the Night Crest. But I don't think people realize that just the fact that she's a paladin doesn't mean she only has to be compared to other paladins. If you compare her to someone who is not as who isn't in like a worse class, she is better because paladin class is just so broken. 8 movements, move again, and 3 different weapon types. That's insane. 16 speed is really good, and it almost makes her con a non-issue. I feel. I think this chapter makes her look kind of bad because when she has weapon triangle disadvantage against Reavers, she dies pretty quickly. But after this, she's actually really easy to keep alive, I feel, because you don't send her in battle with weapon triangle disadvantage ever, and you can make her pretty durable with just high avoid from that weapon triangle advantage, and also buffs her defense a little. Sometimes you can use terrain as well. And like if you look at like a chapter like I don't know, chapter 25 or whatever, most enemies in one area are just one weapon type, so it's really easy to keep Isadora alive. I don't think she's frail at all. Like 28 HP and 8 defense is, I mean, it's not amazing or anything, especially not from pre-promote at level 1. But at the same time, like, is Raven that much better, for example? I don't think so. So I would give her a 3.5 out of 5. Like, she's worse than Marcus, but everyone in the game is, so that really isn't a point against her.
No, that's true, I guess. Alright, we also have another guy to speak about. I'm just gonna enable animations ranking. There is a red unit down here. We need Lynn to talk to him. Here he is. No, wait. No, here he is.
Doesn't even know where he is.
There's Heath. He is the first Wyvern Rider you get. And Heath is, you know, as far as the Wyvern Rider goes, he's pretty solid. His offensive stats are all very, very good. I mean, 50% strength growth, a 50% skill growth, and a 45% speed growth. He also gets Hector hard mode bonuses, but because he's so low level, they don't really end up giving him all that much. Gets a point here and there, but they help him out a little bit. So, like any classic Wyvern rider, he is decently strong, he is decently tanky, his rest is kind of crap, and he's weak to arrows, but his defense is so high that he can actually take an arrow or two before going down, unlike Fiora. One thing I gotta say about Heath is that normally I think that he joins with 2 week bases for his join time. Like, he joins as a level 7 unit and his bases aren't fantastic. But in a ranked run, it is actually sort of a benefit, because that means that killing off a unit will yield Heath with a lot of experience, which will help our experience rank. But still, I give Heath a 3 out of 5 stars. I find that he just joins a little bit underleveled for this chapter. He's not particularly useful here. There's a little bit too many archers, so he can't really do all that much. There's a lot of mages here, so he'll constantly be threatened with his 2 base resistance. So that's what I think about Heath.
I like Heath. I'd say he's like a 4-star unit. Even though he's underleveled, he's pretty easy to raise because enemies in FE7 stay unpromoted forever, so it's pretty easy to get into level 10 and just instant promote him. Or you can wait longer and boost your EXP rank, which I think is a very big benefit. Just like for Raven, having a good combat unit that joins at a low level basically boosts all your ranks. I don't think it's a big issue that Heath is like weak to mages and archers, because his class makes him so flexible. He can fly over everything, and unlike your other flyers, he can take a hit. I mean, like, bows will bring him down pretty quickly, but he can tank most other enemy types pretty well, which is very good. He's also, I think, the only flyer that can promote and still carry Hector around, which can be beneficial for like siege maps. So I really like Heath for that reason. He does take effort, like his base speed is much as good as you would want it to be. But I think he gets like +2 speed on promotion, so once he promotes, that issue is fixed, kind of like with Canas. And speaking of speed, I also want to note about like Isadora, because I'm kind of done with Heath. Isadora's con, I don't think it's as big of an issue. Just don't give her steel weapons. Just don't be a retard and give her good weapons like her silver sword or I don't know, iron lance, whatever. She's fine with those. And even if she gets slowed down, she's still pretty fast, because speed is more important.
Here we have Rath. Rath is the first and only nomad you get in the entire game, I do believe. So
yes.
yes. Whereas in Fire Emblem 6, there's like 3 of them. So he has a horse, and he has better bases than any of your other archers, Will and Rebecca. Not that that says much. Rath is like, if you train him in Lynn's story, and he can be trained in Lynn's story, he can become a decent bow user. If you ever want a bow user on your team, I certainly don't, at least not yet. I think that Rath is, he has very respectable growth rates. Like, all of his offensive growths are very good. His defensive growths are shit, but usually his avoidance will be high enough to make up for that. He has decent base speed. Like, this is the Rath you get if you don't train him in Lynn's story, he automatically joins as level 9. But if you use him in Lynn's story, he will join at whatever level he was when Lynn's story ended. This is like the base Rath you get. I think that along with Heath, like, even though he joins 2 levels higher than Heath, he has really poor bases for his join time, being a nomad, which, you know, means he has pretty shitty stats overall. His con is decent at the very least. He doesn't lose too much from steel bows or longbows. But overall, I find Rath to be a pretty lackluster unit. He gets a 2 out of 5 stars for me. He only gets 1 extra star for having a mount, which allows him to do some rescue drops, and at least it allows him to be where you need him to be. And to be fair, in this chapter, he can be a little bit decent against the Wyvern Knights if you give him a bow. But yeah, he's a 2 out of 5 star, and that's a generous ranking in my opinion.
I don't mind Rath too much, especially for a ranked run, because he's not that hard to feed kills, since he, again, is a low-level unit with a pretty flexible class. I actually think it's better if you don't do limb mode, because in limb mode he joins at level 7, but all the limb mode enemies are like level 1, so he gets like 5 EXP or something, which is really trash.
I'm just turning it
but
back.
here...
I'll keep talking.
Okay, so... anyway, so... because he is so overleveled for limb mode, he can't expect to get level 9 Rath by the end of limb mode.
Way too
so
loud,
he
Jesus Christ. Okay, yeah, keep going. Yep. When I turn you up, you shouldn't increase your voice, Maka. Just keep
losing my train of thought.
Okay.
Anyway, so he can't expect to reach level 9 at the end of limb mode. So he's actually better off if you don't do limb mode. Limb mode, or better off with the mode behind them. And also, if Rath joins, I think at B bows, which means you can use Brave Bow at base.
Oh, you can.
Rath can also rescue just about anyone because he's a melee unit with pretty low con. And what else is really good about him? He ignores or gets through most terrain types, unlike other mounted units. So he has more movement in like snow or whatever. It's hard to find exactly what makes Rath so useful mid game, but I always find some kind of use for him if you promote him quickly. But after mid game, he's not as useful anymore. But I think you should deploy him sometimes to get some EXP.
Right, yeah, for the XP rank if nothing else. So, Hawkeye right here, he joined you, and we can actually recruit him right away with Hector. So Hawkeye is a pre-promoted Berserker, and he's a really, really good one. His bases are really high, and he also has respectable growth rates for pre-promotes. He's a little bit slow though, 11 base speed and 25 speed. He won't really go, like, it's difficult to get him into doubling territory. But then I remember that Fire Emblem 7 enemies are slow as fuck, so it's actually not that hard. Hawkeye, for whatever reason, is one of the only characters in the Fire Emblem franchise that has a completely unique battle animation. I don't know why this is the case, but he does. He does not.
That's why.
Because they were just like, let's just give him a custom animation, because why not?
They wanted him to be shirtless.
I think that's it. Though,
he's fan service.
Yeah, he is fan service. He's a handsome lad. But yeah, he has beastly con, so he can use most axes without losing any speed. He has an absolutely absurd high hit point base of 50 and 18 strength, so he hits like an absolute truck. Berserkers also get a passive 15% crit bonus, so if you give Hawkeye a killing edge, he pretty much becomes a sword master with an axe, which is pretty fucking hilarious.
Oh, I thought it would be a sword master with a sword, because you said give him a killing edge.
Killing axe, my bad. So I rate Hawkeye a 4 out of 5 stars, because he joins with really, really solid bases, and well, if you train up Darch and you use the expensive Ocean Shield on him, he'll probably have higher stats by this point, but Hawkeye is more than good enough for what you're facing at this point during the game. So what do you think about Hawkeye?
Really good unit. I field him for almost every chapter after he joins. There's no reason not to, because he's just so tanky. 50 base HP is just absurd, as you said. And really, like, it takes a ton of things to die. I think if you give Hawkeye a pure water, he's even really good against mages, because he just never dies, ever. 11 speed is kind of low, but he can use the Brave Axe. He doesn't even lose speed from it, because his 16 con is ridiculous. But the con is also a reason I would only give him like 3.5 star, or maybe even 3. Because, well, for one, he isn't around for very long, but also he can be picked up. Like, he cannot be picked up by a lot of mounted units, so he's kind of hard to move around. Whereas Dart wouldn't really have that problem, but Dart's durability is a lot worse, and his hit is a lot worse. So I still think Hawkeye is the much better unit between the two. And overall, I think Hawkeye is just a really solid, like, I only rate him that quote-unquote low because he joins, like, in the middle of the game. If he joined Chapter 1, he'd be, like, the best unit.
Yeah, good point. I mean, I guess his only redeeming feature is his sturdiness, so... so here's Wallace. Wallace is a pretty shit unit. He's a pre-promoted general. You can potentially make him viable if you play Lynn's story, level him up to level 20, and then promote him, or, you know, just promote him from there. But since he joins basically as if you promoted him at level 10, so his bases aren't great. He does have very nice defense, though, at 19, so he's a physical wall. But he's basically just discount Oswin. I mean... I'm sure there are some uses for him, but for the most part, I just don't really like Wallace at all. He's kind of like Oswin, but he's worse in combat, but he's a lot more tanky than Oswin. But do you really need tanks at this point? I'm not really sure. I don't find Wallace to be all that useful at all. I give him a 1 out of 5 stars, simply because I don't really see a use for him at all. He's mostly just a liability. I'm going to recruit him in this chapter, but I don't really think he'll ever be used after that. So what are your opinions on Wallace, Mecca?
I think it's a candidate for the worst unit in the game. Like, at least Nino, there's like ways to make her viable in like a draft run, weird as it is. Whereas Wallace is just completely useless. He's slightly lighter than Oswin, so he's easier to airlift into action, but it's still very heavy. And like, as you said, you don't really need tanky units at this point. I think his main problem in combat is a low speed. Like, it's pretty amazing that in FE7 it's possible to not have enough speed to not double, but like Dorcas and Wallace manage it somehow with like 8 speed. I think you need like 10 or 12 at least to double enemies, and Wallace just doesn't cut it. He has like Dorcas' speed growth with a relatively worse base. The general promotion bonuses kind of savor him and make him like somewhat viable, but not really. And like, a lot of people want to go to the other chapter because Geitz is a lot better than Wallace, because like everything is better than Wallace. But the chapter in general, I think, is it's like harder if you don't know what you're doing, but if you do, then this chapter is a lot faster. So I'd actually recommend people to like get good at Fire Emblem and play this chapter over like raising their lords forever. And get a slightly easier chapter for beginners for the Geitz one.
So
yeah, Wallace is like 0.5 stars.
Yeah, so since we are going to cover every single character in the game, though, even though we're not going to get him, we're still going to talk about Geitz. So I'm going to bring his stats up on screen as well. So Geitz, I actually really like Geitz. Geitz is like, he's a lot better than Dorcas and Bartre, I feel. Not that that says a lot, but he's kind of like a pre-promoted warrior that can actually do something in combat, because Geitz has two strength. He has a lot of strength and he has a lot of speed, and he even has a very respectable strength and speed growth. So he hits hard and he doubles, and he's decently tanky. He also gets hard mode bonuses, which is pretty nice. But as Mecha said, this chapter is generally considered a better chapter to get. I was actually trying to give some experience to my lords in order to get Geitz, because I know Mina really loves Geitz and she wanted to see me use him. And if Geitz joined, or if I got the chapter with Geitz in it, I would definitely have used him, because he is a pretty solid pre-pro mode with really good base stats, even on Hector hard mode, or even for the time he joins. So I'm a little bit bummed out that we didn't get Geitz, but I rate Geitz at 3 out of 5 stars. He's a passable pre-pro mode. He's not like game-breaking or anything, but he's certainly alright.
Yeah, Geitz is like basically a lot like Hawkeye, because both pretty tanky. He's a lot faster, but he trades some durability basically. I think the only part of him that I think is really good about him that you didn't touch upon is like his weapon ranks. He has B axes and B bows, I believe. Oh. And that lets him use the Brave Bow at base level, which is ridiculous because you don't really have any better uses for that. Most snipers can't really use it without losing a lot of avoid and a lot of speed. And he just 2-hit kills a lot of things with it. You can also use the Brave Axe if you want him to, a lot of other weapons. He's very versatile, very strong, and I don't believe he's as heavy as some of your other warriors and Wallace and everything, so he's easier to get around, which makes his 6 move a little less problematic compared to mounted units. Right. So he's just a very solid pre-promote in general. I like Geitz. I mean, his recruitment cost is like awkward because raising the lords is a pain in the ass, but if you like ignore that, I think he's a very good unit. I'd take it like 3 out of 5.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, yeah. Here's Farina. She is one of the 2 Hector exclusive characters in this game. And she is the 3rd Pegasus sister in the squad. She, Florina, and Farina can perform the triangle attack. So Farina. I know a lot of people like Farina. I don't. Like, base stats-wise and growth-wise, she's pretty good. Like, I wish she was a Falcon Knight at this point. I don't know why she joins as a level 12 Pegasus Knight, but I guess people really enjoy the prospect of, like, leveling up to 20 and promoting her to give her better endgame stats. I personally think she would have been way better if she just joined as a level 1 Falcon Knight. Farina has really high combined growth rates, and if you take the time to level her all the way up, she will turn out stronger stat-wise compared to Florina and Fiora, with pretty average and good growth rates in all areas. Her weakness, she's hidden behind a 20,000 gold paywall. You gotta pay her 20,000, these funds you'll never get back, and you could also kinda make the argument that she's actually worth more than that, because you have to spend an Elysian Whip on her as well. So she's really expensive. Is she worth it? If she joined as a normal Pegasus Knight, without the paywall at this point in the game, I'd probably have rated her like 3 or 4 stars, because she has passable basis for her join time. But because she costs 20,000 plus gold to get, I rate her a 2 out of 5 stars, because I just do not think she's worth it. Fiora and Florina both fill her roles much better. Sure, you can set up some triangle attacks, which is a nice, funny gimmick, but it's not really useful in my opinion. It's just fun. I just don't really think Farina is good at all. What do you think, Mecha?
You say 2 stars, I say 3 stars, honestly. Like, flying alone is really good. Especially in Hector hard mode, a flying unit with high resistance is really worth it. The paywall is kind of annoying. I actually think she's worth 40,000 gold if you're fair to her, because the gold that you spend on her could also be spent on things you buy with the silver card. So essentially the money that you spend on her is worth double. So that's kind of annoying. And the cost of the Legion Whip also exists, I guess. But I disagree with the fact that you said if she was a Falcon Knight, she'd be better, because honestly, she can promote at base level. So like, she's basically a pre-promote if you want her to be, but you also have the option of raising her in this chapter. And I think for casual playthroughs, Farina is actually a very idiot-proof unit almost, because in this chapter you can recruit her and then just send her up to the monks where Fiora is right now and just kill everything with a javelin and a barrier boost. The only thing that kind of threatens her is the bishop, but if you kill him with like Fiora beforehand, or just get up nice and close, Then she can basically solo that area and level up, and then you can promote her, and she's really good. Like in Cog of Destiny later on, she is probably your best unit if she's trained. So I rate her 3 out of 5 stars, under the condition that you're like a casual player who doesn't care about turn count. I also think it's kind of annoying that she appears this late in the chapter. You can finish this chapter in like 2 or 3 turns if you want to, but you gotta wait for her in like complete recruitment. But whatever. I think she's good. Just joins kind of late.
Alright, cool. Okay, here's Pent. Pent is...
I see what you did there. Genius.
Pent was the guy who saw massacring all the bandits back in the desert chapter. He's finally playable, and oh boy, what a unit he is. So he joins with some of the best bases in the game. He will pretty much double whatever you send him up against, and one round pretty much whatever you send him up against, maybe aside from some of the like the toughest enemies. Pent is absolutely fucking amazing. Even his growth rates are sort of respectable, but it doesn't matter because, you know, at base, I think someone estimated that even at base, Pent will be useful all the way up to the final chapter. Simply, that's how good his base stats are. And he's also remarkably tanky for a mage with 11 defense and 33 hit points, so on the off shot that he does get a few hits in, he'll survive. But one of the by far best assets of Pent is actually his weapon ranks. He joins with A in tomes and A in staves. He can use A rank staves at base, which is absolutely fucking amazing. Immediately a good physics user off the bat. He also comes with a physics, which is great. He also comes with a automatic A rank support with his wife Louise, one of the only characters in Fire Emblem to actually come with a preset support, at least among the playable ones. I rate Pent a 5 out of 5 star units. His availability is a little bit low, but aside from that, I don't find anything about this guy that is bad. Like, he just is amazing, and I think if you compare Pent's average stats at level 20 with the other 2 mages, he's actually not that far behind either, which is pretty fucking amazing. Easily one of the best units in the game, like after other units like Marcus. I fucking love Pent. What do you have to say about Pent?
Yeah, great unit. You can't really fault Pent for anything except for the fact that like he doesn't fly or have a mount, or he joins kind of late, so that's why I would give him 4 stars out of 5. Because availability is a big deal, but yeah, Pent is insane. I think 1-2 range, like perpetual 1-2 range with whatever, is just so good, combined with decent durability and high speed and everything. It's just amazing. Staves is like, it's just really versatile. It's unfortunate that Warp isn't very good in this game, but the other staves are still very nice, especially in Hector Harp mode, where occasionally you'll find some like sleep staff users and everything. Berserk, you can just restore, or you can physic, or you can barrier. It's just so helpful. I think there's no reason to deploy Pent, or to not deploy him in any chapter after he joins. Really good unit. Also, the support gives him +3 defense, so it makes him even bulkier.
Right. Alright, then we shall talk about Louise! Ah! My favorite unit. Louise, okay, I'm going to try to be objective here, so don't worry. I'll give you guys my cold-hearted analysis of her. I will not give her like extra rating for being pretty, even though she's like the prettiest woman in all Fire Emblem, next to Claire. So yeah, Louise, she's a pre-promoted sniper, which is kind of nice. We do have Rath who can use bows, but Louise joins with A rank in bows, which allows her to use expensive bows off the bat. So Louise, she's really fast, she has a lot of luck. Her bases are pretty good for her join time. The only thing that she struggles a little bit with is strength. She only has a 30% strength growth, or is it 40?
Yeah, do you think that's the only thing? I've got news for you, buddy.
Actually, she's got a 40% strength growth. Her con is a little low, but she can use silver bows at base, and her base speed will pretty much allow her to double everything at this point. I think, of course, you gotta point out the obvious that Louise has that 2-range exclusive weapon type, which means that she can get surrounded on enemy phase and can't really do much. But what I like about her is that she's a unit that you don't really have to put any investment into, and despite, you know, suffering from the bow curse, which definitely puts her down a little bit, I have to rate Louise a generous 5 out of 5 stars. Best unit in the game. What do you think?
I won't even bother with the rating because I know Mangs will just ignore it.
No, come on, let us hear it.
You kind of neglected like 2 or 3 more things that are kind of annoying about Louise. One of them is that her HP and defense are really low.
And that she's married.
At this point, no, that's a pro. I'm glad. I'll get into marriage part in a little bit, but like 28 HP and 9 defense is like
she's mediocre. Not my girlfriend. That's a big minus.
Like, shut up. Anyway, I think this is basically base level Isadora level durability, but like 5 levels later and without the weapon triangle control. So it's not just that if she gets attacked, she doesn't counter, but she can also die if it happens a lot. That's annoying, but at least the Pent support brings it up to like 12 defense, so it's not as bad as it looks. But yeah, being a sniper is kind of bad. I'd say Louise is like a 10 out of 5.
She's also not naked.
Okay,
That's
so
very annoying.
about the whole waifu marriage thing. I think the coolest thing about Louise as a character, because I think she is a really cool character, is that she's someone's wife, but she's not like a trophy wife or anything. She's actually like, she can hold her own. It's like she chastises people who hit on her and shit. Well, not like chastise, but like she politely rejects them and tells them she can fend for herself and her supports and everything. So she's basically like a strong and independent woman, basically. That she doesn't need a man or anything, but she's like a real person. She's not a fucking waifu like fucking every Awakening or Fates person. She can fend for herself, and that's what makes her so cool. So if you reduce her to like waifu material, that actually takes away from her character. So if you really love Louise like you do, you should probably treat her like a person.
Which is why I gave her a 5 out of 5 stars. Perfect.
Yeah,
unit.
that's like objectively rating woman on a scale is like very much personifying a person, right? It's very much treating them like a person.
I agree, Mecha. She's the best student in the game. Okay, let us go. Enter Harken. Harken is the first pre-promoted hero to join your team, and a really fucking solid character. So Harken, that's the character we get if we don't open more than 4 doors. We'll talk about the other character as well. But, so yeah, Harken. What can we say about Harken? Got some of the best bases in the game. He's kind of like, I like to call him like hero Pent. He's very similar to Pent. He's like a late game unit that joins with insane bases. He gets hard mode bonuses as well, which is why his stats are so high. And they actually end up giving him quite a few points because he's pretty high level. Harken's bases...
That makes no sense.
Doesn't it?
That's not how it works, but go on.
Okay, shut up. So... Harken's bases are actually so high that he can be useful in the very final map. I know that because in one of my first playthroughs, I actually fielded him without ever giving him any kills, and he was perfectly capable of going toe-to-toe against some of the endgame mobs. And he's just really, really fucking good. His growth rates are so-and-so. They don't really matter, because at base, he can pretty much do whatever you want him to.
Thank God he said it.
He's extremely tanky at 16 base defense, which is ridiculous. Like, to give you some reference points, like, he's 3 points behind Wallace, a pre-promoted general. That's how fucking tanky he is. His 11 con allows him to wield steel swords without losing any speed. Not that it matters, because with 18 base speed, he usually doubles everything in the game anyway. But it's kind of nice. Like, he can use a steel axe and still reliably double most enemies, which is kind of cool. Almost completely capped strength and skill, which is really nice to see. So he hits hard and he crits a lot, which is cool, because hero crit animations are funny to look at. And he's just overall a really fucking solid pre-promote. I give him 4 out of 5 stars. What do you have to say about Harken, Micah?
Really good combat unit. It's just said really tanky, one rounds almost everything. One of the best boss killers in the game actually, because it's high strength and high speed and high weapon ranks. He has beam, swords and an axes, and he comes with a brave sword that he can use. But he can also use the brave axe, and I think he actually one rounds some of the late game bosses with it, maybe with like 1 crit or Phyllis Might. That's really impressive because bosses are pretty tanky in this game. So I really like Harken as a combat unit, but I don't think he's worth 5 stars because he joined so late and he doesn't have a mount. Though. Oh, but your text document says 5 stars, so I just peeked there.
Oh.
Okay, so if it's 4 stars, that's better. I would say 3 stars personally, but like not because Harken is bad, but because he joined so late, and there's not much opportunity for him to contribute a lot. Basically, there's only a couple maps where he, like saves turns, I guess. I don't really like to talk just about saving turns, but he doesn't like add much that you don't already have, because you have like a team of good units already. But still, really good unit, really powerful.
All right. So if you didn't get Harken, you would instead get Karel, the Swordmaster. Many would probably agree with the fact that Karel is kind of bad. I mean, he's a good boss killer just like Harken, but like everything that Karel does, Harken does better. Sure, Karel gets that nice crit bonus, but to be fair, I mean, I'd rather have a hero that could reliably kill stuff than rely on a Swordmaster that has to rely on crits. Even though Karel has like 50% plus crit with a Killing Edge or Wudao, it's still a chance that he might not crit and not do as much damage as Harken. Also, Karel cannot use hand axes, and he comes with the Wudao instead of the Brave Sword, which is just a worse weapon generally. Now, I think that Karel is, you know, he's a serviceable unit. I used him once. He can kill most bosses, but he's I mean, he's a swordmaster, and swordmasters are bad because they're locked to swords. The only ranged swords you get are like light brands and rune swords, and they're super rare and expensive and not really reliable. And especially since, you know, I'm trying to get a 5-star funds ranking and those swords are very expensive, I'll never be able to use those. But, you know, he does what Harken does, just a little bit more poorly, and he sucks on enemy face. I rate Karel 3 out of 5 stars because he's a decent pre-promote with okay basis. But again, he's a lot worse than Harken.
I gave Karel like 2 stars out of 5, and like I'm not even counting the fact that Harken is better than Karel. I'm just rating Karel in a vacuum. He doesn't really do much. He's just a 6-move unit with 1 range. Like with let's lock the swords. Like, what's that gonna do for you just late in the game? He's not bad or anything. His offense is pretty good when he crits, but like you already have a bunch of good units already at this point of the game. There's no real point in fielding Karel unless your units like all got RNG screwed or something. He's just okay, but he's not great, and he joins late, so 2 stars.
Pretty much. Alright. So, here is what everyone has been waiting for. Let's talk about Nino and Jaffar. Even though Jaffar doesn't join in this chapter, we'll talk about him nevertheless. So in this corner we have Nino, everyone's favorite little mage. Oh my god, Nino. So I feel like this is very like 2010, like the discussion of whether or not Nina's a good unit. I feel like most of the Fire Emblem community have kind of resigned themselves to the fact that she is rather trash now. But the worst part is, I might actually use Nino a little bit in this playthrough because of the EXP rank. And she levels up, like if I can feed her a couple of kills, she usually gets an entire level worth. And giving Nino 15 levels is actually going to help my EXP rank out a lot, so you might actually get your wish, guys. I will probably try to use Nino a little bit, because she's mandatory in the next chapter. As far as Nino goes, though, I mean, she's the typical Est archetype. She has some of the best growth rates in the entire game. And for a level 5 mage, she also has pretty decent bases. Like, if she joined at level 5 at the early game, she would be absolutely borderline broken. In my randomized Fire Emblem 7 playthrough, I actually got Nino as a Cavalier as one of my starting units, and she ended up being one of the most broken units in the entire game. So yes, Nino certainly has potential if you train her up. The problem is, a level 5 mage at this point during the game with these bases is just a complete liability. You see how good Pent is, and he's joined already. If you train Urk, he'll easily be as good as Nino too. If you take your time to train up Nino, which I understand some people think is fun to do, I totally get it. Some people really enjoy the prospect of leveling up a weak unit into a complete powerhouse. For those players, Nino is a really exciting unit to use, and I definitely get why so many people like him, or like her. The problem with Nino is when you try to come in and make an argument that Nino's a viable unit, because she isn't. She requires a stupid amount of babying to level up, and even at the end of the day, if you get her up to Pent or Urk's level, what you get is a Sage with slightly more speed and luck. I think, like, at max level, if you compare her max stats to Pent and Urk, she has like 4 or 5 more points of speed and a few more points of luck, and that's it. So that's a lot of investment to pour into a unit just to get a slightly better Pent or Urk. But, as I said, I might actually use her a little bit on this playthrough, because, you know, the XP rank. But sadly, I'm still gonna rate her a 1 out of 5 star unit. I'm sorry, she does not deserve anything else. So what do you have to say about Nino, Mecca? I've actually been looking forward to hearing
Not a whole lot anymore, actually. You were pretty thorough with that. What I'll say is I drafted Nino once in some kind of LTC. I think I've said this before, but I actually got her to like A stabs because there was a lot of free turns to be using, even though it was an LTC draft. And she actually ended up saving turns in Victory or Death. That was about the most use I ever got out of Nino. Yeah. Like the only thing that I'd like to take away here is the fact that training Nino is not hard. It's just tedious and unnecessary, because I think on average a Nino that's trained to level 20 and then promoted with a guiding ring, so like a 20/1 Nino is basically still inferior to base level Pent. That's how good Pent is, basically. So Nino is not really worth it unless you like having fun by training her, basically. 1 out of 5 is the only thing you can give her.
Yep. I should also point out that I know you don't care about Con, but in this case I do feel like it fucks her over because she comes with an Hellfire Tome, which I think slows her speed down by 7 points, which does end up mattering quite a lot. And but one thing needs to be said though, if you do plan on training Nino, giving her the Alpha Drops is, like, she's probably one of the units that makes the most use out of the Alpha Drops because of the sheer amount of levels that she has to gain. Although in the end, they won't really improve her stats all that much, but still.
No, Alpha Drops is like, it's like 1 point joined over 20 levels or something. It's really overrated and
So
important.
plus 2 to all her stats over the course of, like, max level.
Yeah, it's like, what the hell, what's
and
the point?
she caps, like,
Also,
she caps magic,
yeah.
speed, and luck anyway, so it won't really be that noticeable, really.
Yeah, but about 3 con, it's more like if she joined with less speed, basically, that's all it is. And speed is a pretty important stat, so in the case of Nino, where she loses speed from every single tome, then yeah, low con matters, but it's the same as if she had 1 less point of speed, basically.
Yeah.
She can use fire with only losing 1 point of speed, I think, and after promotion, I think she can use it without losing speed, so it's not the biggest deal ever.
Yeah.
And
I will say, though, that Nino does at least have the grace to come with C in tomes, so she can use Hellfire tomes at base, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, I don't think it matters that she starts with an Hellfire, because the only enemy that will ever attack her in this chapter, if you're reasonably quick, like quick at all, is like a monk that, well, we know monks cannot double, you don't have to kill. So that doesn't matter, and then once you get to her, you can just trade her a fire tome if you want to. So her low con is only really an issue if you're like not smart enough to bring a spare tome for her, which I think Manx might be because he's out of them.
Yeah, I'm actually out of fire tome.
So, yeah. But basically, don't meet Manx and Nino will be fine.
Yeah. Alright, and then we're going to talk about Jaffar. Jaffar.
Yay.
So,
Good unit.
very good unit. That Exa, 5 out of 5 stars. Exa, no, actually, it's not 5 out of 5 stars. So, Jaffar is a unit that's very popular in the fandom. Well, he's got a few things going in his favor. Like, if we're gonna mention the good things first, his bases are absurdly high. I mean, 19 base strength, 24 base speed. That is pretty fucking good. I mean, Jaffar is kind of like Karel in that he can kill pretty much anything you throw him against. He is a decent boss killer. He hits very hard. He even has very decent defense for a thief. Like 15 base defense is pretty good. I mean, that's almost like Harken level defense. So even though his hit points are slightly low at 34, he's a lot more durable than you might think. So the problem with Jaffar though is that he's just like Karel. I mean, he's a 6-move unit with 1 range. And do you really need that at this point during the game? Now, he does have one thing that Karel does not, and he can use lockpicks. However, he does not have the ability to steal as an assassin anymore. So sadly, like, there aren't that many things to steal, but on this map, it could actually be kind of viable because there's an Earth Seal we would really like to get our hands on. So if you're just bringing a thief to open doors and chests, then you can actually field Jaffar for that, although I think there's like 1 or 2 more maps at this point that has chests and locked doors. So it's not really going to be all that viable. But yeah, Jaffar, I would rate him a 3 out of 5 stars, simply because he is a decent pre-promote with decent bases that can pretty much kill everything you throw him up against. Although it's, to be fair, I probably rated Karel a little bit too highly. It's probably like 3 or maybe 2 stars, but I'd say 3 stars just because I really like bases and I really like a unit with 24 base speed. But it's a generous 3-star at the most. One thing that people really have to be aware of, like I think one of the most misleading aspects about Jaffar as a unit is that people think that the Assassin is a good class because of him. But in reality, the Assassin is a terrible class. It's just that Jaffar has some of the highest personal bases in the game, and this is really evident if you ever randomize this game and you get Jaffar as any other class. You'll see that he starts with like some of the highest base stats in the game, because he just is, according to the story, he's like really powerful, so they gave him really high stats to match that. But the assassin class is actually awful, which is why promoting anything to assassin like in Sacred Stones is a very, very stupid idea. He does have the silencer skill, which is like one of the only skills in this game. He has like, I think it's a 50% chance on crits to insta-kill your opponents. And I think that you can't use it against the dragon or the final boss, and I think Nurgle has like a 50% resistance to it, but aside from that, it works against pretty much anything. The silencer is just a really RNG skill, and it's not good at all. In most cases, a crit kills your opponent, so it's very rare that a silencer will actually do anything useful. Although when it procs, it will actually give Jaffar some extra experience, so it does have that going for it, but it's still a trash skill. RNG as hell and not very useful, so yeah. What do you have to say about Jaffar, Micah?
6 movement, swords, talks like a robot, 2 stars.
Yeah, that's
bad unit. I mean, not bad, but like, yeah. The high speed is useful in Conquer Destiny in Hector Heart mode because it doubles some of the Valkyries.
Oh, right.
It's a really big pain in the ass, and its resistance is actually pretty high for a physical unit. I'm just trying to find issues. Is basically, I agree with like the majority of what you said, that Jaffar is mostly unnecessary, and like the stats are good, but they're kind of overkill in a way. And I'd hand in like 3 speed and 3 strength of him any day to give him like the option to use javelins, for example.
Oh yeah,
that would be great, or like a mount, something like that. He doesn't have those. He joins very late, so there's not much utility you can get out of him. As you said, lockpicks not very useful. Silencer, you can like, if you're RNG abusing, then Silencer has some uses in the final chapter or whatever. But this is like really niche stuff, and overall Jaffar just doesn't have much to a playthrough. And for you especially, I don't think he'll be very useful because even though he's like a special class that can get some extra experience class-wise, his level is so high that's not going to make a difference. So, like, I think he gets maybe 5 XP for killing something, and then if you assassinate, he gets like 10. That is not something that's going to boost your XP rank. So, even though Jaffar is like, he can kill stuff, but that's it.
Yep, pretty much. And we will never see another assassin in this game because there's no way I can spend the fell contract considering I'm low on funds. So, so enter Vaida. Vaida is recruitable. Talked to her with Hector. I have this theory that she could be recruited by Heath, but I forgot to check it. We had a little bit of an argument. I think she might be. I'll post it on the video if it's true. So yeah, Vaida. She's one of the last recruitable characters. There are 3 more after her. She's a Vivan Lord, and really good one. Like, her bases are really good. 22 base defense, some of the highest base defense in the game. I think she might have the highest base defense in the game, if I remember.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Like, who's gonna have a higher, right?
No, nope. And yeah, she's a flyer. She hits hard. She has really good defense. Her con is good, so she doesn't lose speed from lances. Even her base speed of 14 is like good enough to double most FE7 enemies. Not good enough to like double pre-promotes, but definitely good enough to double everyone else. Just really good unit. I really like Vaida a lot. She joins a little late, but aside from that, I give her a 4 out of 5 stars. She's kind of like Harken, but on a mount. So I really like Vaida. What do you have to say about Vaida?
I think Vaida used to be really underrated because people were like, she joins late and her stats are probably bad, but they didn't really look at her stats because basically she's FE7 R. Her defense and strength are both really good, and her speed is passable. 14 is enough for FE7 enemies for sure. It doubles a lot of bosses, which is what makes her a great boss killer. I think she has B or A in both.
She has A rank in swords and lances. Her weapon ranks are really good.
So yeah, good weapon ranks, which means she quadruples most bosses, and that makes her a good boss killer, even in 0% growth for whoever cares about that. What else is there to say about her? Her con is pretty high, and then she's female, so she can't really carry many people.
Yeah,
she has like 8.
She can like carry Ninian.
Yeah, basically, that's kind of annoying. It's kind of sexist that female flyers and mounts just don't get to carry much people, but that's all there's to it, really. I don't know. I don't think she's very good overall in the grand scheme of things, just because she joins late, but if she joined earlier, she'd be really good. As it is, I'd say she's like a 3-star unit this late joining. I think she's better than Harken, actually, because Harken joins just about as late, but he doesn't have a mount, so he's not that amazing. He's still good. But Vaida's basically mounted Harken, as she said. Yeah,
there's one thing I want to say about Vaida, and that's that her like supposed weakness is that she has low res. But I kind of find that she's in the same boat as Hawkeye, in that she has so much base hit points that if you just barrier her up, she can fight pretty much magic units no problem, just because of her insane hit point pool. So
yeah, and because bows would be her auto weakness, but because she's 22 defense, she doesn't really care, unless it's like a silver bow or like an iron ballista.
So yeah, she's good.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, that's adorable.
Enter Carla. She is the second last recruitable character and a Hector mode exclusive. So Carla, she's like a bit of a hidden character because you need to train Bartre, which I don't think a lot of people do willingly. And like, for being such a weird and obscure character, she's Fierce Mother, in case you didn't know. You'd think she'd be really good, right? Because she like joins at the end. She's very like obscure and difficult to get because you need to like deploy a specific character, and that character needs to be level 5. Yeah, if Bartre's not a level 5 warrior, she does not show up. The truth of the matter is, she's kinda just discount Karel. I mean, she has weaker bases than Karel, she's lower level than Karel, and here's the kicker. Her growths are actually lower than Karel's as well. Her con is worse than Karel. She has a shitty affinity and few supports. Pretty much the only reason, or the only good thing about Carla, or the only interesting thing about her is like her story element. Like, you get to see how Bartre met her, and like, you get to see Fierce Mother, which is kind of cool, but as a unit, she's just plain awful. 14 base strength is not enough to do any meaningful damage. She is decent in this chapter for fighting in the arena, because Swordmasters are generally pretty good in the arena since they like crit a lot and double. But man, she has very few redeeming traits. As I said, like, Karel is better than her, and Karel joins many chapters earlier. So yeah, she's a one star unit. Bad.
Yeah, I'm actually glad that they didn't make Karel like a super good unit that you can only get if you train another really bad unit. I would feel that's pretty annoying. So she's just an Easter egg, not really meant to be in the game as anything but like a reference to FE6. But when it comes to gameplay, that doesn't really mean anything. She's just a 1-star unit. Done.
Yeah. She'll never be fielded after this. I do like her design, though. I think Karel has some of the best female Swordmaster design. She reminds me a lot of Ira from Fire Emblem 4, and I think that's kind of who she's meant to be themed after. But yeah.
He's good. Renault is a good unit, okay?
Okay, well, I think we're going to disagree a little bit on that. So, Renault, last unit to join, well, except for the Gato archetype of this game. Renault's a very interesting character. He was actually one of the first characters I did a spotlight on. If you look at his stats, what's kind of funny with Renault is that it kind of reflects that he has a martial background. He has like a lot of skill and speed and defense, but his magic is kind of shit, which kind of reveals that he hasn't been a magic user for very long. He became a bishop kind of recently, which is why his magic is really bad. His growth rates are pretty low, as you'd expect, because he's nearly capped, so it doesn't really matter. But as I said, Renault's biggest weakness, I mean, he has good speed. 20 speed is very good for a promoted unit, but the problem is he has 12 magic, so he can't really do much with staves. But he's a decent combat unit. Like he can use some of the higher ranking light tomes that your other units can't use. So he's like a good filler unit. And he comes with some pretty good staves, like it comes with the Fortify staff, which is really helpful. And he also has very high con for whatever reason, which is kind of funny. He's like, if you train him a little bit in this chapter, he can use the Orla in the next chapter. But you can always just use Athos for that, I guess. But yeah, I don't really have much to say about Renault. He's like he's kind of bad. I mean, he joins pretty late. He doesn't really fill much of a purpose. You have other units that can do what he's doing at this point. I don't really understand what kind of purpose he serves, other than being a very mysterious character. I really like his story. He's a cool unit, like that wise, but unit wise, I'm gonna have to rate him like 2 out of 5 stars, because I don't really see what you can do with Renault at this point that is like helpful, that other people can't do. But I'm very interested in hearing why you think is a good unit, Mecca.
Okay, so when I say good unit, I mean, like if he joined earlier, I would think he's good. But because he joined so late, I agree with 2 stars. But okay, so let me ask you this. What can, how do I phrase this? What has Renault's low magic prevented you from doing that you would have liked him to do? Besides, like, one-round killing promoted enemies or something.
One-hit KOing promoted enemies is kind of a big deal.
Yeah, okay, but like, I don't know, Serra, for example, also has very low magic.
Yeah.
And Priscilla's magic is not that much higher anyway.
Yeah.
And I mean, I agree that Pent is like a lot more magic.
But Priscilla has Elfire and Thunder. Renault, like, even like Divine sucks in comparison with its low might.
It's like 1 or 2 might lower, dude. It's not that big of a...
Yeah.
Anyway, so... The thing about Renault is you neglected to mention he has A in staves at base, so that's pretty good. And I know that there's like other units who can do what he does, like Athos has the same perks, kind of.
Pent.
But everything that Renault does on his own, Pent too, but everything that Renault does instead of them means that they can do other things. So for example, if you want, next chapter, if you want someone to warp, you can use Renault for that instead of them, and then they can do something else. So basically, he fills a pretty cool niche that not that many units in this game can fulfill, and well, there are a lot if you train your staff rank, but usually you will just have what Manx has, which is like 1 Priscilla and then Serra, but she has really bad magic, so she doesn't count against Renault, and then you have Pent, right? That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Priscilla, Pent, Serra, that's basically what you have. So I feel like Renault is pretty good in that between those. Like, I think he's better than Serra for sure at this point in the game. Yeah. Basically, my point is, A-Staffs is really, really good. He can use Fortify, he can use Physic, he can use Hammer, and he can use Recover, so his magic doesn't really matter when it comes to healing. And he can use Warp and he can use Rescue, and that lets him be part of a lot of useful strategies if you're interested in like low turn in the final chapter or something.
I guess.
So that's why I like Renault, even though he joins late. Yeah, I drafted him pretty late in some kind of Fire Emblem GBA draft, and I don't know if he like saved turns or anything, but he was pretty helpful to have once I got him. You don't have him for very long, so he doesn't really build up credit much. But the chapters he's in, I think he's pretty good.
One thing that I will point out that is kind of important to note is that he is very tanky. Like he can bring him for the final chapter and he can like tank a couple of hits from the elite morphs. That is something Serra and even Priscilla struggles to do because of their frailty.
Yeah.
15 defense and 43 hit points is insane for a magic unit. Absolutely crazy.
It's pretty high. At the same time, I don't really ever fight with Renault. I just spam stats. But it's nice. I think it's nice for this chapter that you can just put him somewhere out there and he's not gonna die. He's not gonna die to random ballistas or Falcon Knights or whatever. He can take a couple of hits. That's nice.
And 20 speed is really nice, like for doubling purposes.
Yeah, it's really high actually.
Yeah. All right, Renault, everyone. Which here's Athos. He's the God archetype of this game. Starts out as level 20 unit. He's pretty much a unit that's here to ensure that you have some way of beating the final chapter. He's basically like, I mean, he's not capable of soloing the entire final chapter, but he's so strong that even if you have like
my beer.
I mean, maybe
you can do it.
Can you really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Just need to be very careful about how you position Nils and shit.
Yeah.
I mean, you might have to rig a couple of crits, but I digress.
Yeah.
He's good.
I mean, I can't really rate Athos as anything other than a 5-star unit because he is really good at what he does. Sure, he's only available in the last chapter, but that's sort of his thing, right? I mean, he's just really fucking good. Capped magic, he's really fast, he's capped defense, he's really tanky. I mean, he gives you the impression that he's like a frail old man, but really he's not. He's got fucking beard of steel, this guy. And of course, the best thing to do with Athos is just to give him a Lunatome. And he can pretty much one-shot Nurgle if you get a crit, which is kind of good. Although, we are going to have to try and use Athos as little as humanly possible because we're still balancing on that XP rank. Every time we use Athos, that is... I will consider that like a minor fail. Although I'm probably going to have to use him a little bit on the first turn because I do have to hurry it up. So, yeah. And you can also give him some staves. He has S rank and everything. So, really good weapon ranks, pretty much. You can use all the S ranks. However, I've already given the... I've benched the Orla because we're not going to use that. And I've given the special weapons he comes with to the other units. So, yeah. Athos, everyone. I mean, do you have anything to say about Athos?
I wouldn't say 5 stars because I do actually count availability, so I actually think that makes Athos like a bit of an average unit, like 2 to 3 stars. Just because if you're only in one chapter, then how much are you really contributing to compare it to like other units? Like even Renault is around for like 2 more chapters, I can actually do more things in those. But it depends on how you weigh it. But either way, Athos, I just really like his versatility. 30 magic lets him do a lot of shit. As you said, Luna is the best, but he can also do like bolting, purge, Nosferatu, although I don't think Nosferatu is too good on him. He can berserk people in the final chapter, which is really amazing if you're worried about some of the stronger bosses. In general, he's just a really good staff user, although I prefer to use other units with staff so that Athos can attack more often. But if you want, he can like warp people, rescue people, restore if you're really bad and got status somewhere. He's got really high res, so he's good against a couple of magic users in the final chapter. He can survive 2 hits from Nurgle, which is amazing if he uses Aureolo. And, yeah, Aureolo. I just made that up. And well, 4 Blades is his personal tome, and it's like it would be okay if Luna didn't exist, but Athos is like you gotta use him. He's really good.
And